Chapter 1687. Yi Chen held the arrow in his hand gently and scoffed. So this is what you're relying on? You want to kill me with this? That's child's play. Golden light flashed in his eyes again. The next moment, he ignored the hundreds of meters of space and took a step forward. He instantly appeared before the carnal desire's Lord and shouted, "Greenwood Imperial Finger." He pointed at the center of the Lord of carnal desire's forehead. With that one finger, the center of the carnal desire's path master's brows split open. His heaven's hall acupoint shattered along with his head. One strike. The Lord of carnal desires had perished. Everyone was completely stunned. Even someone as powerful as the body integration Lord of carnal desires had been killed just like that? Yi Chen's eyes flashed, and he beckoned from afar. He immediately held the carnal desire's sect master's corpse in his hand and studied it carefully. Something's wrong. Suddenly, Yi Chen's expression changed. This is just a substitute. What? Dijiang hurried over. This isn't the real Lord of carnal desires. Take a good look at him. Yi Chen pointed a finger at the carnal desire's sect master's corpse. With a flash of light, the corpse turned into a tiny person the size of a palm. Scapegoat puppet? Dijiang's pupils constricted violently as he cried out involuntarily, "This is a scapegoat puppet. I didn't expect Taoist Lord of Human Desire to be so astute to actually use a scapegoat puppet." Yi Chen was also a little surprised. 2 supreme ancient treasures have been destroyed in a row. He's willing to go all out. No wonder I killed him with a single strike. There's a reason why this person could become a tribulation-transcending old monster. Dijiang nodded slightly. At his peak, he was one of the tribulation ancestors of the spirit realm. If he died so easily, he would have lived in vain. He frowned and said, "But I don't understand. Where is his main body? Why did you put in so much effort to use a death scapegoat puppet to confuse us?" Yi Chen's eyes flashed and his expression changed suddenly. "Yuhan? Let's go back to the Yi family." Dijiang had obviously realized something as well. Boom. Yi Chen took a step forward and disappeared into thin air instantly. At the same time, in the sky above the Yi family, the battle continued. Boom. The ground within a 100-mile radius of the Yi family began to crack. Countless buildings collapsed. It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. However, the entire Yi clan was protected by a faint trace of cold air. This cold air made the ground and buildings unbreakable. The old ancestor Yellow Spring, Yang Tian, and the others fixed their gazes on the depths of the sky with deep worry between their brows. The battle between Su Yuhan and Qianxia Wuhan was still ongoing. It was evident that her ability skyrocketed this time was not just a little. However, this was what everyone was most worried about. If it were not for the fact that the battle between the two was too terrifying, Patriarch Yellow Spring could not help but step into the sky to observe the battle. Xian Du Ming Sword / At that moment, an unusually cold and indifferent voice rang out in the world. Then, in the depths of the sky, a dark light suddenly streaked across. That dark light seemed to connect heaven and earth together. Boom. Then, a figure fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. Everyone was stunned when they saw the person's face clearly. It was Qianxia Wuhan. At that moment, his face was pale, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. He was not as calm as he used to be. The most shocking thing was that there was a crack on his chest. The crack seemed to be a wound that could not be healed, and endless blood was flowing out of it. At the same time, a beautiful figure landed in the void. The figure held a black longsword that was about a meter long. The longsword emanated an aura that seemed to come from the eternal abyss. The aura was chilling. Yuhan, Yi Hai and the rest, who were on tenterhooks, were extremely excited when they saw that. The old ancestor Yellow Spring and Yang Tian heaved a sigh of relief. Su Yuhan looked down at Qianxia Wuhan. "You've lost." Her voice became colder. Even the chilling aura emanating from her body had frozen the space around her. Yes, I've lost. Qianxuwuhan stood up slowly and smiled calmly. As expected of the reincarnation of the Netherlord. No wonder you were able to bring chaos to the three realms back then. Buzz! At the same time, a powerful pressure descended from the depths of the void. Then, a thin figure appeared. It was Yi Chen. Xiaochen! Everyone exclaimed when they saw who it was. Even Su Yuhan, who was like an ice goddess, trembled. A hint of tenderness flashed through the depths of her eyes. However, at the next moment, the tenderness was replaced by coldness. Yuhan. Yi Chen looked at Su Yuhan's change in shock. To his disappointment, Su Yuhan looked at him coldly as if she was looking at a stranger. Fellow Yi, you're finally out of closed-door cultivation. Qianxuwuhan looked at Yi Chen quietly. The smile at the corner of his lips became even more peaceful. Looks like the Tao Lord of Human Desire's scapegoat didn't stop you. So what if I did? Yi Chen's expression was cold. Qianxuwuhan, you won't be able to leave this place today. After I kill you, the Tao Lord of Human Desire won't be far from death. There's no joy in life, and there's no bitterness in death. Qianxuwuhan smiled and said, I'm just following the heavenly Tao. The most helpless thing in this world should be wanting to die but not being able to. What do you mean? Yi Chen's eyes flickered. For some reason, he felt that Qianxuwuhan was acting strangely at that moment. A strange smile suddenly appeared at the corner of Qianxuwuhan's lips. Fellow Yi, do you think this realm has won just because you defeated the Tao Lord of Human Desire and me? Chapter 1688. This is an unfair world war. You can't win. Rumble. Just as Qianxuwuhan finished speaking, everyone felt the ground beneath them start to shake violently. What was even more terrifying was that the sky seemed to be shaking as well, as if the entire Earth's barrier was shaking violently. Under everyone's gazes, the ground was torn apart. As endless demonic energy surged into the world, it seemed like a gigantic demonic figure with no end was tearing through space. The demonic figure seemed to have crawled out of an endless abyss. Its head was in the sky, and its feet were on the ground, like the demon ancestor had descended to the mortal world. Ever since he appeared, everyone in this region felt a trace of extreme pressure. Under that pressure, countless people felt that their bodies could explode at any moment. What's that? Yi Chen's pupils constricted violently as he looked at the gigantic demonic figure that suddenly appeared. His gaze turned extremely cold. Demon Master! The Demon Master has appeared. Almost at that moment, the expressions of the Patriarch of Hell, Yang Tian, the four witches, and the rest changed at the same time. He had always been a thorn in their hearts. In the end, he had escaped. Previously, the World Guardian had exhausted all the immortal jades to suppress the Demon Master for a month, buying them some time. Now, the Demon Master had escaped. Without the World Guardian, where was Earth's hope? Everyone was in a state of panic. The Demon Master dispersed his gigantic body and transformed into a man in black. He stood on the gigantic demonic cloud and looked down at Yi Chen from above. The World Guardian can't suppress me in the end. This world is destined to collapse. At that moment, he stood in the air like a boulder. Demonic energy was released violently and lingered in the air. It was as if the demon ancestor had descended with monstrous demonic might. Shameless boasting. Yi Chen smirked coldly. Demon Master, don't forget that this is Earth, not your demon world. So what? The Demon Master looked at him with a playful expression on his ferocious face. The World Guardian must have fallen long ago. Without him, who else in this world can be my enemy? Could it be the reincarnation of the Netherlord? He looked at Su Yuhan with a faint smile. If you had recovered all your memories from your previous life, I might have retreated, but not now. Or you. He looked at Yi Chen again. I can feel that the aura on your body has become stronger. I believe the World Guardian gave you the remaining immortal jade before he died, right? In the end, the increased power doesn't belong to you. Moreover, even though your strength has soared, you are still no match for me." He threw his head back and laughed maniacally. The demonic aura on his body surged, and the depths of his eyes became extremely intimidating. Su Yuhan took a step out and said coldly, "Let me fight him." "Back off." Yi Chen grabbed her. She struggled by instinct, but she realized that Yi Chen was holding her tightly. She turned her head to look at Yi Chen by instinct. A hint of struggle flashed through her beautiful eyes when she met Yi Chen's determined gaze. "Keep an eye on her," Yi Chen instructed the 4 ancestral sorcerers. Then, he took a step forward and soared into the sky. He looked down at the Demon Lord. "Demon Lord, do you dare to fight me? You?" The Demon Lord laughed in disdain, as if he was mocking him. "Fine, I'll get rid of you first. Let's see who else dares to fight against the demon race." Boom! A blood-red color flashed through his eyes as if he wanted to devour souls. The demonic aura around him was like a vast ocean. "Fight!" Purple lightning surged in Yi Chen's eyes. He did not stop. He turned into a streak of light and tore through the air toward the Demon Lord. Boom! In that instant, the two of them collided fiercely with immense killing intent. Almost at that moment, everyone's hearts were in their throats as they stared at the scene in the depths of the sky. This was a battle that concerned the fate of Earth. This was the fatal crisis that Earth was facing in the Age of Doom. "Heavenly Lord Yi, you must win." At that moment, countless existences who were watching this scene muttered to themselves. Boom! In the sky, Yi Chen and the Demon Lord were fighting to the extreme. They unleashed their full strength and attacked with all their might. The aftershocks that overflowed directly shattered the void. Their every movement seemed simple, but it contained the might to destroy the heavens and the earth. Even though the Demon Lord looked down on Yi Chen, he still fought with all his might because Yi Chen had exceeded his expectations time and time again. This ant born from Earth. He was not that weak. Boom, boom, boom. The attack swept past, and the void collapsed. The Demon Lord's body was filled with demonic aura, and his eyes were intimidating. He slapped his palm out, covering a large area of the void with monstrous demonic aura. He slapped Yi Chen hard. Good timing. Yi Chen was not afraid at all. As if he had transformed into a rock, he threw a punch. His fist was wide open, and the pressure swept in all directions. Boom, boom, boom. The terrifying attacks of the two of them erupted into an endless and terrifying storm. The violent energy was like a vast ocean that was incomparably intense. The repeated collisions shook the world, causing the hearts of the people below to palpitate from the bottom of their hearts. Too powerful. Everyone's eyes were trembling. The Demon Lord's eyes shot out a bloody glow, and his demonic hair curled into the sky. He said coldly, "You're quite capable. No wonder you dare to challenge me." End of this chapter. Chapter 1689. Unfortunately, I still can't change anything. Divine Demon Fault. The Demon Lord roared, and a gigantic golden sword appeared in his hand. The sword gleam soared through the sky, devouring demonic energy and shattering the void. It was accompanied by the wails of ghosts and the roars of 10,000 demons. It was enough to shake the world. "Master." At that moment, the Night Demon Armor's voice sounded in Yi Chen's mind. "This is a grade 8 demon weapon. It's not easy to deal with." Yi Chen's eyes focused. He immediately felt a suffocating chill from the gigantic demon sword. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he was unwilling to use the immortal-slaying flying saber. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he was unwilling to use the immortal-slaying flying saber. At the critical moment, Old Fan's voice sounded in his mind. "Yi Chen, the Xianyuan sword can deal with him. The Xianyuan sword is a great emperor's divine weapon. Back then, the great emperor used an immortal's spine to refine it." "That's right, the Xianyuan sword." Yi Chen's eyes lit up. At the next moment, he grabbed at the air and said in a deep voice, "Where's the Xianyuan sword?" Boom! At that moment the earth shook and the sky changed color. Roar! Along with an earth-shaking dragon roar, a five-clawed golden dragon tore through the void and galloped over. Roar, roar, roar! The gigantic five-clawed golden dragon circled around Yi Chen a few times. In an instant, it turned into an ancient bronze sword that floated before Yi Chen and let out a sword hum. The Xianyuan sword was completely bronze. It looked like an extremely ordinary bronze sword. It was only a foot long and its blade was simple. There was even a trace of rust on it. However, this was the Xianyuan sword. No matter how unprepossessing it was and how ordinary it was, even the suppressed immortal soul would feel terrified upon seeing it. Today, the Chinese descendant Yi Chen is untalented. Please help me kill the enemies, purge the world, and protect my land. Yi Chen cupped his fists at the Xianyuan sword solemnly. The Xianyuan sword trembled lightly and landed in his hand. Fight! Yi Chen attacked again. A sword gleam erupted from the Xianyuan sword in his hand. It carried terrifying supreme power as it slashed at the demon lord, destroying everything. "You're courting death." The demon lord was so angry that he laughed. He waved the demon god obelisk, causing it to erupt with a vast amount of demonic qi, forming a strange demonic qi whirlpool. No matter if it was the air or the surrounding space, it was completely devoured by the strange vortex. Kung kung! In an instant, the gate of fiend gods and demons collided violently with the Xianyuan sword, both erupting with the most extreme power in the world. This was the battle between Yi Chen and the demon lord. It was also the battle between the Xianyuan sword and the fiend god citadel. Rip! Almost at that moment, the demon master released the demon god fault. Like a demon god coming into being, he threw a punch that shattered the void and landed on Yi Chen in an instant. Yi Chen was calm as he ignored his punch. Subsequently, his left fist shot out like a rainbow with the power of a dragon and elephant. That punch was filled with dazzling divine light and surging electric arcs. Bang bang! Two explosions rang out in the void almost at the same time. Facing the demon master's punch, Yi Chen's chest caved in heavily. It was almost pierced through, and there were shocking stains of blood flowing out. With Yi Chen's body that was comparable to a divine body, who else could almost break it with a punch other than a beginner stage tribulation stage demon master? The demon clan's body was naturally strong. Moreover, it was a demon master who was comparable to a tribulation stage demon master. Subsequently, Yi Chen's punch landed on the demon master's body. Accompanied by a low and powerful explosion, the demon master's head was blasted into pieces by Yi Chen's punch that contained the power of destruction. Demon blood splattered down, burning through the space. Seeing this scene, everyone's hairs stood on end. It was simply too valiant. The two of them were clearly fighting with their lives on the line. Even Qianxia Wuhan's pupils constricted violently. An existence as powerful as the demon master had his head smashed by Yi Chen's punch. The demon master is dead? Someone could not help but cheer when they saw the demon master's head smashed by Yi Chen's punch. No, he's not dead. The patriarch of Hell's gaze was fixed on the demon blood that had splattered into the space. He realized that the demon blood had condensed again. Fellow Yi, don't let his demon blood condense again. His demonic soul happens to be in the demon blood. The patriarch of Hell shouted hurriedly. In reality, there was no need for him to remind him. Yi Chen had already taken a step forward. His eyes released a monstrous pillar of divine fire, as if he wanted to burn all the demon blood in the air. However, he was still too slow. Even though a portion of the demon blood was burned, there was still quite a lot of demon blood that successfully avoided it. However, in the next moment, the demon master's cold voice suddenly sounded in the air. "You want to kill me? You can't do it." The demon blood in the air quickly gathered, and then condensed into a new head at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few breaths, the demon master's body and head fused again and recovered to their original state. It did not look like his head had been smashed by a punch at all. Yi Chen stared at him and said, "You've also cultivated the heaven-shrouding demonic power?" Chapter 1690. The demon lord's head had been smashed open by him, but he was still able to recover. Only the heaven-shrouding demonic art had such a heaven-defying effect. Surprised, right? After recovering, the demon lord stared at him and laughed. "Since I can teach Huang Fu you the heaven-shrouding demonic technique, why can't I cultivate it myself?" As soon as these words came out, everyone's expression changed. They knew how powerful the heaven-shrouding demonic art was. After all, the battle between Yi Chen and Huang Fu Yu had shocked the world. The heaven-shrouding demonic power that Huang Fu Yu had displayed was extremely terrifying. This demon lord was already in the early stage of tribulation passing. He was already very difficult to deal with. Now, with the addition of the heaven-shrouding demonic skill, he would definitely be even more difficult to deal with. "Kid!" The demon master looked at Yi Chen with a sneer. "The fact that you're able to rise in this realm shows that you're quite talented. I'll give you another chance. As long as you kneel and surrender now, I'll spare your life." Yi Chen's eyes gleamed. "Even if you're a real godfiend, I'll kill you today." True Spirit 9 changes. As soon as the word kill was heard, there was a boom. An extremely violent force exploded from Yi Chen's body. Subsequently, under everyone's gaze, a terrifying ferocious beast appeared on Yi Chen's body. The ferocious beast was ferocious like a war beast. At that moment, Yi Chen seemed to have transformed into a peerless demon king. Shameless boasting. The demon lord snorted coldly as a cold light surged in his eyes. With a wave of his hand, the demon god obelisk that was fighting against the Xianyuan sword immediately fell into his hand. At this moment, it was as though there were tens of thousands of demons roaring out from the gate of the gods and demons. "Fight!" Yi Chen stepped out with the Xianyuan sword in his hand and swung it. As the sword descended, a series of godlike phantoms appeared above it. "It's the mark of the great emperor!" Everyone, including the 4 grand sorcerer ancestors, beamed with joy at the sight. They fixed their eyes on the great emperor's brand that appeared on the Xianyuan sword. The next moment, the illusory figures of gods accompanied the Xianyuan sword as they slashed out, bringing with them terrifying power as they heavily slashed at the gate of gods and demons. Boom! The entire void seemed like it was about to explode as a terrifying storm surged out from the cracks. When the 2 god weapons collided again, a terrifying divine might immediately erupted from them. Kacha! Along with a crisp sound, a crack suddenly appeared on the demon god watchtower. Ka! The next moment, the fiend god obelisk shattered. This 8th-grade demonic weapon of the demon master had been destroyed by the Xianyuan sword. It was clear that the imprint of great Emperor Xianyuan on the Xianyuan sword had been activated on its own. Puchi! The demon lord spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt a tearing pain in his head, as if an electric saw was cutting through it. It was as if his head was about to explode. This was the pain of the devil soul. It was not physical pain. The shattering of the celestial demon fault had caused a backlash to his demonic soul. It was even more painful than when Yi Chen had blown his head apart. "Lowly human ant, I will kill you!" The demon master endured the pain and looked at Yi Chen with an extremely ferocious expression. His eyes were filled with violent killing intent and a bloody glow. He reached out with one hand, and an extreme black demonic aura surrounded his 10 fingers. Suddenly, he flicked his fingers. 1,000 phantom black demons stab! Pu. As he flicked his 10 fingers, densely packed black icicles appeared from his 10 fingers. The black icicles completely occupied heaven and earth. From afar, it seemed as if the entire sky had been covered. "Die!" the demon master growled. The black icicles that covered the sky and earth charged at Yi Chen with terrifying power. A solemn gleam flashed through Yi Chen's eyes as he watched that. He did not dare to underestimate it. As his pupils constricted, a voice that sounded like a demon god's murmur resounded in the world. 9 transformations, first transformation, second transformation, third transformation, the fusion of the 9 transformations, immortal demon transformation. At that moment, everyone saw a dazzling demonic gleam suddenly light up on Yi Chen's body. Upon closer inspection, the dazzling demonic gleam seemed to be covered in a layer of black demonic armor. On the other hand, Yi Chen's demonic might surged. His terrifying eyes looked like he had transformed into a monstrous demon lord. The 9 transformations of the true spirit represented 9 different ferocious beasts that were like immortals and demons. When the 9 transformations were used together, it was called the immortal demon transformation. However, the price was that, after using it, his body would fall into an extremely weak state. Therefore, Yi Chen was unwilling to use it unless it was absolutely necessary. However, the demon master had the heaven-shrouding demonic power. If he did not go crazy, he would definitely be the one to suffer in the end. Demonification? The demon master's expression finally changed when he saw that. You actually know the demonification technique? Roar. Yi Chen suddenly roared into the sky and swung his fists at the same time. Terrifying demon phantoms shot out from his body. At that moment, heaven and earth seemed to be about to split apart. So powerful. Qianxu Wuhan, who was below, finally sucked in a breath of cold air as shock flashed through the depths of his eyes. He finally realized that the current Yi Chen was no longer an existence that he could fight against. End of this chapter. Chapter 1691. Boom, boom, boom. Within a few breaths, the overwhelming icicles attacked Yi Chen at the same time. They enveloped Yi Chen like a swarm of bees stinging him. Boom. The space that Yi Chen was in was gone. Even Yi Chen himself had disappeared from this world. All that was left was a huge hole in space. Xiaochen. Yi Hai and Wulan almost fainted. It's over, ha ha ha. The demon lord laughed maniacally at the sky, his demonic might wantonly spreading. Each of the icicles he unleashed could kill a body integration cultivator, let alone such a terrifying number. Heavenly Lord Yi. At that moment, Lei Yunzi, the 4 witches, and the rest revealed despair. Was Earth's hope completely gone? Yang Tian's eyes were bloodshot. Fight to the death. Fight to the death. Fight to the death. At that moment, numerous resolute and solemn roars of fury resounded throughout the world. Even the most powerful person on Earth, Yi Chen, was dead. The billions of living beings in this world had completely lost hope. Since that was the case, why not perish together? You bunch of ants? The demon lord smirked in disdain. He slapped out with his hand, turning it into a demonic palm that covered the sky and slapped at everyone. However, at that moment, the space that the demonic palm passed through actually distorted violently. At the next moment, a seemingly tiny and weak figure landed above everyone's heads. With a tap of his finger, the gigantic demonic palm was forcefully destroyed. Demon Lord, it's too early for you to be happy. Yi Chen smiled lightly. It's Xiaochen. Yi Hai and the rest cried tears of joy when they saw Yi Chen's face clearly. It's Heavenly Lord Yi. He's not dead, he's not dead. Everyone revealed expressions of disbelief and excitement. How is this possible? The demon lord roared hoarsely. I used up all my demonic aura, but I can't kill you? Yi Chen's demonic eyes immediately emitted a demonic gleam when he met his gaze. Demon Lord, I've told you. Even if you're a real godfiend, you'll die by my hands. At the next moment, a murmur came from Yi Chen's mouth slowly, immortal slaying. Boom! At that moment, a shocking saber gleam pierced through the sky. That saber light was extremely resplendent, as if it could split open the starry sky of the universe. At that moment, the only thing left in everyone's eyes was the peerless blade radiance. It was as if Yi Chen's entire body had merged into the peerless saber gleam. Boom! In the depths of the universe, it was as if a divine general had knocked open the gates of heaven and descended to the mortal world. Holding a blade, he slashed at the demon lord. A blade against the blue dome of heaven. The immortal slaying flying saber appeared. The demon lord's pupils contracted violently, and all the hair on his body stood on end. Great demon disintegration technique. In his eyes, it was as if there was only a setting sun left in this world, and that setting sun was like a sharp blade that could split the world in half. This slash could slay immortals and destroy the 9 underworlds. Thus, at this crucial moment, he immediately decided to use the sky demon disintegration technique in order to preserve his life. However, before he could use it, the peerless saber radiance slashed through his forehead. In front of everyone's eyes, it was as if a sun had bloomed between the demon lord's eyebrows, emitting a dazzling light. Heaven and earth immediately quietened down. Everyone held their breath. The demon lord stood still as if he had been petrified. He glared at Yi Chen. Why you are, at this moment, he finally realized what kind of existence that saber just now was. It was the weapon that made the immortals in the immortal world famous, the immortal slaying flying saber. Naturally, Yi Chen's identity was clear. Immortal Emperor. He hadn't even finished speaking when his entire body exploded with a bang like an ice sculpture, and he transformed into countless fragments that scattered throughout the heavens and the earth. This time, no demon blood flowed out of him. That was because the demon blood had already been completely wiped out by the immortal slaying flying saber, along with his demon soul. With a single slash, the demon lord had died. An existence as powerful as the demon lord only realized at the moment of his death that his opponent was not a native of Earth. Instead, it was the immortal emperor who ruled over all worlds, that supreme deity. At that moment, the clouds dispersed in the vast world. Only Yi Chen stood proudly in the air like an immortal king from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal world. He was peerless. All the living beings who were watching fell into dead silence. At that moment, they looked at Yi Chen as if they were looking at an immortal god. Everyone felt small and insignificant. After an unknown period of time, someone finally reacted and cried out in joy, "Heavenly Lord Yi is mighty. Congratulations to humanity, congratulations to Earth." Boom, boom. Heavenly Lord Yi is mighty. Congratulations to humanity, congratulations to Earth. At that moment, orderly and powerful voices suddenly resounded in the world. The voices were so loud that it sounded like 10,000 thunder rumbling. For some reason, a strange feeling surged in Yi Chen's heart when he saw that. It was as if he could see through everyone's thoughts. Subsequently, rays of golden light shot out from their bodies, and then they fused into his body. Yi Chen's expression changed slightly. What's that? End of this chapter. Chapter 1692. Heavenly Lord Yi is mighty. The low and deep voices that were like muffled thunder converged together, as if they were reverberating intensely between heaven and earth. At that moment, it was as if the entire earth was shaking. However, Yi Chen looked at the golden gleams that were shooting at him from everyone's bodies. Initially, there were only a dozen of them. However, there were more and more of them. Dozens, hundreds, thousands in the end, they actually surged towards him from all directions, like densely packed golden raindrops. After the golden gleams entered his body, he had a feeling that he had never felt before. It was as if he could see every living being in every corner of the earth, as if he could feel every thought in their hearts. This is the power of faith. Yi Chen's eyes flickered as he looked at the golden gleams that were surging at him from all directions. The so-called power of faith was the power of faith. It was formed by the psyche of all living beings. The stronger the psyche, the more powerful the power of faith. In the Western mythological system of the current world, the Western gods relied on the power of faith to become stronger, and the power of faith came from the vast number of believers. That was why the Lord Jesus was revered by countless believers. If it was in the East, it could be understood as incense. For example, for thousands of years, ordinary people would worship the city god, Hutu, and the kitchen god every year. It was a cultural belief. As the saying went, man fights for pride, Buddha fights for incense. Yi Chen was puzzled as he thought to this point. Why did I suddenly obtain the power of faith from all living beings? Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. Could it be that I killed the demon lord and obtained the recognition of all living beings in this world? Am I treated as a god now? As soon as the thought appeared, he was shocked. He was even more certain that he had guessed wrongly. He took a deep breath in and completely opened his mind to accept the power of faith that was gathering from all directions. After that, the internal injuries and true origin energy that he had suffered from the battle with the demon lord actually recovered at an incomparably miraculous speed. In just an hour, his battle prowess had recovered to its original state. He was no longer as dispirited as before. What surprised him even more was that his divine consciousness seemed to be showing signs of strengthening. Yi Chen spread his divine consciousness outward. 800 meters. 1,000 meters. 5,000 meters. In the end, his divine consciousness reached 100,000 meters into the sky, and he could see a land of chaos and nothingness. Suddenly, the scene in front of him changed drastically. In the next moment, he actually arrived in the darkness 100,000 meters above. There was actually a rather small and exquisite figure quietly looking at him in the void. "Big brother," suddenly, the figure spoke and looked at Yi Chen with a complicated expression. Yi Chen looked at her in surprise. "Are you Qianqian?" At this moment, Qianqian's transformation was too great. If she was said to be a pitiful girl before, then at this moment, she was like a banished immortal from heaven. It was clear and lively, giving people a feeling that it could only be seen but not reached. "Big brother, it's me." Qianqian looked at him quietly and slowly said, "Congratulations, big brother, for killing the demon lord. You've won a glimmer of hope for the living beings of this lower realm." "Qianqian, what about your current Earth's heavenly Tao?" Yi Chen asked. Qianqian's face darkened, and she shook her head slightly. "Yes and no. Qianqian can monitor all living beings in this world, but I don't have the slightest power of the heavenly Tao." "Why?" Yi Chen was surprised. "Could something have happened to your body?" "Qianqian doesn't know either." Qianqian shook her head. She suddenly looked at Yi Chen and said, "Big brother, you've killed the demon lord and obtained Earth's recognition. Let me show you something." She waved her hand after saying that. Before Yi Chen could react, the scene before him changed again. What he saw was a lonely and boundless space. Even so, Yi Chen's expression still changed. It was because at the peak of a golden divine mountain less than 3,000 meters away from him, there was a dazzling divine light. If one took a closer look, they would realize that the divine light was like a giant axe. The giant axe was lying on the peak of the mountain, motionless. It was an ancient existence. However, there was a monstrous divine might spreading out from it. Even the current Yi Chen could not help but feel a hint of pressure before it. This pressure came from the depths of his soul and bloodline. It had nothing to do with his cultivation base. It was as if the giant axe was the ruler of this world. Yi Chen was stunned at first. Then, his body shook violently. "This is this world's spirit fetus. Panga's axe?" Before this, the world guardian had mentioned to him that Earth's spirit fetus was Panga's axe. Therefore, Yi Chen came to a realization after seeing the giant axe shadow. The world guardian had once said that the greatest threat to Earth was not the demon lord, but the immortal soul and body that had been suppressed for countless years. Only Panga's axe could kill it. "Yes, big brother," Qianqian said, "this axe is this world's spirit fetus. It's also because of its existence that Earth has survived until now." As expected, Yi Chen's eyes flickered as he said, Qianqian, can I hold this Pengu's axe now? Before Qianqian could speak, he subconsciously took a step forward and sped toward the golden divine mountain. End of this chapter. Chapter 1693. However, what shocked him was that as soon as he took a step forward, he felt the space around him crazily squeezing him. At the same time, the distance between him and the golden divine mountain widened once again. How could this be? Yi Chen said in a deep voice. Could it be that I haven't obtained Pengu's axe's approval? Big brother. At this time, Qianqian suddenly said, the Pengu axe lost its artifact spirit before, and now it has no spirituality. If you want to move it, you must find its artifact spirit. What? Yi Chen was slightly shocked. Where's its artifact spirit? Qianqian doesn't know either. Qianqian shook her head and said painfully, the spirit of the Pengu axe was lost long before Great Emperor Xianyuan existed. Even Great Emperor Xianyuan couldn't find it. But, she changed the topic. When the Great Emperor stepped onto the heavenly road, he told me that there's only one way to find the weapon spirit of the Pengu axe. What is it? Yi Chen blurted out. His greatest threat now was the ancient immortal. If he was allowed to emerge into the world, then this world would definitely be destroyed, and it was practically impossible for him to fight him. It could be said that this Pengu axe's artifact spirit could not be lost. Be attentive. Qianqian said. The Great Emperor said that you have to use your heart to sense it. Heart? Yi Chen could not help but frown. He was not satisfied with the answer. After all, it was too general and there was no specific direction at all. He didn't understand why Great Emperor Xianyuan left these words behind. As if sensing his confusion, Qianqian smiled. Big brother, Qianqian believes in you. I believe that you can completely save this world. The next moment, her body turned transparent gradually and disappeared completely before Yi Chen. Qianqian? Yi Chen called out by instinct, but there was no response. He could only shake his head lightly. At the same time, the scene before him changed again, as if he had returned to the modern world. Mighty Heavenly Lord Yi. He still stood proudly in the sky while the cheers that covered the heavens and the earth caused him to be extremely dazed. It was as if everything he experienced earlier was only an illusion. Pa, pa, pa! Just as the entire world was in an uproar, a clap suddenly rang out, immediately interrupting everyone's cheers. Everyone couldn't help looking over. A purple-robed youth had unknowingly appeared in the sky. The young man was as handsome as a demon. His gaze was like lightning, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Downlord Carnal Desires! At that moment, everyone's expressions changed. They all looked at him with murderous intent. Faced with everyone's gaze, the Carnal Desires sect master glanced at Qianxia Wuhan on the ground before looking at Yi Chen. Fellow Yi, I'd like to congratulate you for killing the demon lord. I can't help but admire you. You've done what Qianxia Wuhan and I couldn't. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth, as if he was thinking from the bottom of his heart. Downlord of Carnal Desires, you defected to the devil race and chose to help the evildoers. The Patriarch of Hell could not help but say, isn't it a little too late to jump out and flatter fellow Yi at this time? Everyone couldn't help but nod in agreement. In their eyes, the Carnal Desire Path Lord was no different from an evil demon. This was because when the Fiend Lord was suppressed by the World Guardian, it was this person and Qianxia Wuhan's existence that greatly suppressed the powerhouses of Earth. Too late? The Carnal Desires sect master could not help but smile. Fellow Hell, do you really think that this world will no longer be in danger after the Fiend Lord dies? What do you mean? The Patriarch of Hell's expression changed slightly. Yi Chen's pupils constricted almost at that moment. He stared at the Carnal Desires sect master. What are you trying to do? What am I trying to do? Qianxia Wuhan suddenly said, naturally, to complete our mission. Under the uneasy expressions of Yi Chen and the rest, He raised his eyes slightly as if he could see through the entire ruins, and our mission is to welcome my master into the world. If one took a closer look, they would discover that there was a strange mark slowly appearing between his brows. As soon as the mark appeared, Yi Chen's expression changed. Immortal slave seal. It was an immortal slave seal. When the ancient immortal region existed, it was a strange method used by the ancient immortals to enslave cultivators who ascended from the lower realm. Anyone who was implanted with the immortal slave seal would obey the former's orders. "Stop him!" Yi Chen shouted. At the next moment, he took a step forward and teleported toward Qianxue Wuhan and the Carnal Desire's sect master at an extremely terrifying speed. He finally understood where the uneasiness in his heart came from. It turned out that Qianxue Wuhan and the Carnal Desire's sect master had been implanted with an immortal slave seal by the ancient immortal. From the beginning, their goal was to release the suppressed ancient immortal into the world. "Ha ha, it's too late, too late." The Carnal Desire sect master laughed out loud. "Fellow Yi, you think that we surrendered to the Fiend Lord to save our lives. Little do you know that the Fiend Lord is just a pawn in our eyes. I still have to thank you for getting rid of this chess piece for us and removing a huge obstacle for my master's reappearance." At this point, his eyes narrowed, and extreme admiration and reverence surged on his face. "In return, I'll let you enjoy the most spectacular and despairing scene in this world in countless years." End of this chapter. Chapter 1694. The Carnal Desire's Path Master laughed maniacally. Then, everyone saw the entire sky suddenly crack open, as if a huge hole had appeared above everyone's heads. Within the huge hole, dazzling rays of light seeped out. Each ray of light was like a violent energy. A cold glint flashed through Yi Chen's eyes when he saw that. With a thought, the Emperor brush appeared in his hand. He held the Emperor brush in his hand and quickly wrote the word "seal" in the air. As soon as the word was formed, the world trembled. Then, a strange power spread out with Yi Chen as the center. The energy seemed to be a series of strange runes. As they surged, they formed a huge cage that enveloped the entire cave. "Ha ha, fellow Yi, are you trying to trap my master and prevent him from coming out? It's too late, too late." The Carnal Desire's Path Master laughed maniacally. After exchanging a glance with Qianxue Wuhan, the two of them charged toward the huge cage together. Explode. In the next moment, their bodies exploded with a loud bang, unleashing two destructive auras. The entire sky seemed to be struck by a storm, causing countless voids to collapse. Under the impact of these two auras, the seal cage that Yi Chen had painstakingly formed collapsed instantly. They actually self-destructed. The Patriarch of Hell screamed with an extremely shocked expression. "Crazy, these two fellows are completely crazy. They're actually willing to die to self-destruct to break fellow Ye's seal." One had to know that Qianxue Wuhan and the Carnal Desire's Path Master were not only tribulation stage monsters in the spirit realm, but they were also big shots who ruled over an entire realm. Now, for the sake of an ancient immortal, they were willing to self-destruct. Only Yi Chen felt a chill in his heart. The Carnal Desire's Path Master and Qianxue Wuhan's willingness to self-destruct did not surprise him because both of them had been implanted with an immortal slave seal. If the ancient immortal wanted them to self-destruct, they would not resist. The only thing that he did not expect was that the ancient immortal was willing to self-destruct two tribulation stage monsters in order to come out. Boom. The aftermath of the two's self-destruction formed a storm that crushed toward the ground. Seeing this scene, the expressions of countless people changed greatly. If they were enveloped by this storm, it was likely that many people would die. At the critical moment, Yi Chen took a step out. He then bit his finger and quickly condensed a formation in the air. Only then did he block the storm. "Look, what's that?" At this moment, someone suddenly roared. Everyone hurriedly looked over, only to see a divine mountain standing within the huge hole. From afar, the divine mountain looked like 5 fingers of a person, majestic and extraordinary, with a majestic and mysterious aura. In the belly of the mountain, there was a figure with disheveled hair. He was crushed by the entire mountain. He was as thin as a stick and did not move at all. His face was covered by countless weeds. Roar! At this moment, the silhouette that was being suppressed was howling, like the rage of an ancient god. I'm about to break free. You won't be able to suppress me. When the time comes, I will slaughter this world. Boom! Every single roar he let out caused the entire 5-element divine mountain to shake without end, and the mountain cracked as if it couldn't bear the weight. It's not that easy for you to get out. The 5-element divine mountain was extremely ethereal, and an ethereal voice faintly sounded. The great emperor had already predicted all of this back then. It's time to reveal it today. Where's the 9 tunes dragon formation? As soon as he finished speaking, heaven and earth churned and the seawater flowed. At the Shanghai Pass, some tourists were shocked to discover that the stone city in front of them was accompanied by countless dragon roars. Then, 9 dragons rose into the sky and flew towards the horizon. Dragon? That's a dragon. Oh my God, there really are dragons in this world. What's that? In the sky above the Yi residence, everyone looked at the scene in the huge hole in shock. All of them were shocked by the 5-element divine mountain and the mysterious figure that was suppressed within it. Fellow Yi, could that be the ancient immortal? The Patriarch of Hell walked to Yi Chun quietly and stared at the figure that was suppressed under the 5-element divine mountain. This mountain only appeared after the sect master of human desire and Qianqiu Wuhan self-destructed, so this mountain must have an unusual connection with the ancient immortal. It should be him. Yi Chen's eyes flickered as he unleashed the golden pupil flame with all his might. Then, he saw that the 5-element divine mountain was covered in great Tao runes and densely packed divine formations. The energy source of these runes and divine formations was the countless living beings and plants that covered the 5-element divine mountain. This is a divine mountain. Yi Chen's heart shook slightly. Clearly, he did not expect someone to forcefully refine this mountain into such a magical thing. Is this great Emperor Xuanyuan's doing? His pupils constricted violently as he used the golden pupil flame to look at the mysterious figure that was suppressed again. However, what entered his eyes was an incomparably dazzling flame, causing his eyes to burn with extreme pain. Then, he hurriedly retracted his gaze. It really is him. Yi Chen took a deep breath in. End of this chapter. Chapter 1695. Before everyone could react, an earth-shattering dragon roar resounded from the distant horizon. Then, under everyone's gazes, 9 giant dragons descended from the sky. The 9 azure dragons roared and flew into the huge hole. After circling around the 5-element divine mountain a few times, they turned into huge golden characters that were branded on the 5-element divine mountain. From afar, it looked like 18 large golden words like a pair of couplets. The handwriting on it was twisted like a wriggling tadpole. On the left was Lin Bing Do Zhe Jie Zhen Lai Qian Xing. On the right were Hum Ma and I Pad Mi Hum Zhen Qian Kun. As soon as the 18 golden words were imprinted on the 5-element divine mountain, the mysterious figure's expression changed drastically, causing the 5-element divine mountain to tremble. Buddhist incantations. When did Great Emperor Xianyuan leave behind such a trump card? The Great Emperor has foreseen the past and the present. It's naturally not something you can imagine. The 5 elements divine mountain shone with a lustrous luster and was incomparably majestic. If we really let you come into being, this world will be plunged into misery and suffering. Ha ha ha! The suppressed ancient immortal roared and laughed maniacally. 5 elements, you can't suppress me. With these 18 so-called Buddhist mantras, I'll be able to erase their power in less than half a month. At that time, you will no longer be able to suppress me. If I come into being, then I'll definitely pay the price of slaughtering billions of living beings to completely destroy this world. Half a month is enough, said the five-element divine mountain. Then it shone brightly, causing the mysterious figure to sink into the belly of the mountain. That ancient immortal is temporarily suppressed? Seeing this scene, countless people cheered. However, there were also many people who frowned and were deeply worried. They had clearly heard the conversation between the ancient immortal and the five elements divine mountain. The ancient immortal could only be suppressed for another half a month at most. Once half a month was up, the crisis of this world would arrive. Thinking up to here, a human powerhouse couldn't help but step forward and say to the five elements divine mountain, "May I ask who you are, senior? Please show yourself. I am the spirit of this mountain. I have no physical body." The voice came from the five elements divine mountain again. "I can only trap this creature for another half a month. After that, you'll have to rely on yourselves." Hearing this, everyone instantly felt hopeless. At the same time, the voice of the five elements divine mountain continued, "May I ask who obtained the sovereign seal and the Xianyuan sword? Please come in and have a look." "It's me." Yi Chen took a step out and was about to enter. Patriarch Yellow Spring and Yang Tian subconsciously pulled him back. "Be careful." Even though they had personally witnessed the five elements' sacred mountain suppress the ancient immortal, the two sides had never interacted before, so it was difficult for them to completely trust each other. "It's okay. I'll be right back." Yi Chen shook his head, signaling the two of them not to worry. Subsequently, he turned into a graceful bird and flashed into the huge void rift. Looking at the five elements' sacred mountain from such a close distance, the first thing that came into view was strands of celestial light soaring into the sky, emitting a vast and boundless divine might. "Please sit." The five elements divine mountain shook, and plants condensed into a rattan chair in front of Yi Chen. "Are you the successor of the great emperor?" Yi Chen sat down calmly and nodded lightly. He said, "I'm not the successor. I was just lucky enough to obtain the item left behind by the great Emperor Xianyuan." "If that's the case, then you're worthy of being the successor." The five elements divine mountain trembled slightly. "You saw what happened just now. Although this ancient immortal has been temporarily suppressed by me, his appearance is inevitable. You only have half a month left. In this half a month, you need to find the world's spirit fetus. Only with it can you fight this ancient immortal." Hearing that, Yi Chen secretly frowned. "I already know about that. The only problem is that the artifact spirit of this world's spirit fetus has been missing for many years. Without an artifact spirit, I can't subdue it at all." As soon as that was said, the five elements divine mountain shook even more frequently. "The artifact spirit has long been lost? Then you must find a way to find this artifact spirit." Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Even the great Emperor Xianyuan couldn't find this artifact spirit back then. Finding it in half a month is easier said than done. The five elements divine mountain fell silent. After a while, it could not help but say, "I can give you something that might be helpful." "What is it?" Yi Chen was slightly surprised. "Give me your right hand." Yi Chen could only do as he said. As he extended his right hand, a vine extended from the five elements divine mountain, and then a mysterious rune was written on his palm. As soon as the rune was formed, it emitted waves of immortal light like chaotic energy. The five elements divine mountain said slowly, "With this item, if the artifact spirit is within 1,000 miles around you, it will glow. This way you can find the artifact spirit faster." "I understand." Yi Chen's eyes flickered. Also, the five elements divine mountain was crystal clear. "According to what you said, this world spirit fetus is probably a weapon, and its artifact spirit is most likely reincarnated as a human. You can focus on the people in the secular world. If someone has the world spirit fetus imprint on his arm, He must be the reincarnation of the artifact spirit. As long as you find him and bring him to me, I can restore his artifact spirit body and merge with the world's spirit fetus. End of this chapter. Chapter 1696. No one knew what Yi Chen said to the five-element divine mountain after entering the huge void rift. The only thing everyone knew was that Yi Chen announced that he was going into closed-door cultivation after he walked out. Some people said that Heavenly Lord Yi, as the only hope of Earth, was definitely trying to find a way to break through and step into a higher level to fight the ancient immortal. Meanwhile, more people could not help but suspect if Yi Chen had been seriously injured after the battle with the Demon Lord. He was just going into closed-door cultivation to recover from his injuries. There were all sorts of theories, but there was no concrete evidence, causing the entire world to fall silent. Behind the silence, countless people discovered that there was an extremely terrifying aura growing stronger day by day in the huge void rift. That ancient immortal is rapidly growing stronger. Someone seemed to have seen through all of this, and his face was filled with fear. If he escapes in half a month, what will happen to this world? At the same time, the situation in the entire world underwent an extremely strange change. Among the three original alliances, the Cultivation Alliance began to stir. The Cultivation Alliance knew that there was no hope in this world, so they moved their sect, as if they wanted to escape this world. However, what made them despair was that a huge barrier had unknowingly appeared outside of Earth. The barrier was like a cage that made it impossible for anyone to escape. How could this be? A giant of the Cultivation Alliance roared at the sky. We are not living beings of this world. Are we going to die with this world? Under such turbulent undercurrents, two figures quietly walked through every corner of the world without anyone noticing. 10 days later, amidst the strong void astral wind, two silhouettes flitted across the sky like graceful birds. The Patriarch of Hell glanced at the mountains that passed by quickly beneath his feet and could not help but say, "Fellow Yi, we've searched almost every corner of this world in the past 10 days, but we didn't find anything. Could it be that this world's world spirit embryo and weapon spirit have already disappeared?" "I don't think so." Yi Chen shook his head lightly. "Since it's an artifact spirit, how can it disappear so easily? I have a feeling that it definitely exists in this world." He took a deep breath in. His gaze was like lightning, as if he wanted to see through everything. "I'm just worried that 10 days have passed." Patriarch Yellow Spring sighed faintly. "If you still can't find the artifact spirit, once that ancient immortal escapes, you'll definitely be no match for him." After saying that, he hesitated and said, "Fellow Taoist Yi, I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it." Yi Chen looked at him. Meeting his gaze, Patriarch Yellow Spring took a deep breath and said slowly, "If there's really no hope left in this world, why don't you leave this world with your loved ones? No matter how powerful that ancient immortal is, it won't be easy for him to hunt you down." Yi Chen fell into silence for a few seconds and said while shaking his head, "I know what I'm doing. You don't have to say anything more." Old Ancestor Yellow Spring seemed to have guessed his thoughts. He could only sigh inwardly. He did not belong to this world, so he did not have a strong sense of belonging to this world. The life and death of this world had nothing to do with him. Furthermore, from the Patriarch's point of view, the path of cultivation was destined to be short-lived and unaffected by worldly matters. Yi Chen lifted his head and glanced at the gigantic rift in the sky. He could faintly sense that the aura within was growing stronger. The Patriarch's words made sense. However, Yi Chen could not do it. If this world did not exist, Yi Chen would not have come to this world. Taking 10,000 steps back, this world had his parents, relatives, friends, and even China. He might be able to escape, but that would cause the billions of living beings in China to die tragically in the hands of that ancient immortal. Moreover, he had seen too many loyal people, such as the 4 great wizard ancestors who had been sleeping for countless years. They only knew how to live. The world guardian was just an emotionless, immortal puppet. For the sake of this world, it still gave him the remaining immortal jade. It could be said that Yi Chen carried too much. How could it be so easy to abandon it? At that moment, the mysterious rune in his palm suddenly trembled. Yi Chen took a look immediately and saw that the mysterious rune left behind by the five-element divine mountain on his palm was turning red and hot. There's movement. The patriarch of Yellow Spring was delighted. Then, he quickly looked around. Could it be that the world spirit fetus artifact spirit is nearby? Yi Chen glanced at the towering mountains under their feet and could not help but fall into deep thought. In the next moment, he waved his sleeve and descended at high speed. Located in the west of China, there was a village known as the Longevity Village in Xianyang, which was known as the ancient capital of the 13 dynasties. The village was surrounded by mountains and a long stream. Since ancient times, the village's terrain had been known as the 8-petal lotus flower. In recent years, the local government had vigorously developed tourism, causing the village's economy to improve rapidly in just a few years. There was a tavern in the east alley of the Longevity Village. The tavern was built in an ancient style. Whether it was the architecture or the facilities in the house, they were all extremely retro. Therefore, many tourists came because of its reputation. Business was booming, and it was overcrowded. The sky was getting dark, and there was a long queue outside the tavern. Everyone was waiting to go in and see the elegance of this popular tavern. Chapter 1697. Number 376, please come in. The manservant standing at the entrance shouted at the crowd with his phone. As soon as he finished speaking, a young man in ordinary clothes led a young man in black forward and handed over a number plate. Let's go in. The servant checked the number plate and gestured for the two to enter after confirming that there was no mistake. They were Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell. As soon as the two of them entered, they found that the wine shop had a total of 3 floors. At this moment, the first and second floors were already full. A young girl with a youthful smile stepped forward and led the two of them to the 3rd floor, and arranged for them to sit by the window. Please wait for a moment, both of you. The things you've requested will be arranged soon. The young lady was a little stunned by Yi Chen's handsomeness. She blushed as she spoke. Yi Chen nodded. After the girl left, old ancestor Yellow Spring took a sip of tea. While sizing up the entire wine shop, he used his divine sense to send her a voice transmission. Fellow Taoist Yi, why did you bring Ancestor here? Don't tell Ancestor that the artifact spirit of the world's spirit embryo is hidden here. We'll find out soon enough. Yi Chen, on the other hand, smiled mysteriously. Only then did he realize that the lights in the tavern were lit by vintage lanterns. The kitchen of the wine shop seemed to be at the corner of the 1st floor. There weren't many staff in the wine shop. Other than the young girl from before, there was only a hunchbacked old man. Cough, 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 from time to time, the sound of old people coughing could be heard coming from the kitchen of the tavern. After Yi Chen spread his divine consciousness, he realized that the young lady from before was helping a hunchbacked old man to sit down. His heart ached as he said, "Grandpa, rest for a while. Let me do the rest." "Silly girl, Grandpa is fine." The hunchbacked old man smiled kindly, then got up and continued to work in the kitchen. Suddenly, the entire tavern fell into darkness. "Why are the lights off?" "Boss, the lights are off." All of a sudden, the entire tavern was filled with noise. It was obvious that the other customers were complaining. Cough, cough, cough. Accompanied by a series of coughs, the young girl walked out in the dark while supporting the hunchbacked old man. "Everyone, I'm sorry, but there's a power outage." The hunchbacked old man's aged voice rang out, "Please wait for a moment. I'll ask Re to go next door and buy some candles. It'll be done very soon." After saying that, the girl named Rue took out her phone and walked out of the shop. The crowd's dissatisfaction was temporarily suppressed. The hunchbacked old man slowly walked to a cabinet on the third floor and took out an oil lamp from somewhere. However, other than kerosene, there was no lead. The hunchbacked old man rummaged through the items again, as if he was looking for something that could be used to make lanterns. At this time, a lighter suddenly reached out. "Old man, I have a lighter. I can light this kerosene lamp for you." The hunchbacked old man subconsciously looked up and saw a young man in ordinary clothes looking at him with a smile. Cough, cough, cough. The old man coughed a few more times, turned around, shook his head and said, "This guest must be joking. This oil lamp doesn't have a lantern, how can it be lit?" Yi Chen looked like he came to a realization. "That's right. This oil lamp can't be lit without the rushes. You're smart, old man." As soon as his voice fell, he immediately said with a smile that was not a smile, "Since Elder is so witty, can you help this ye solve a doubt? Please feel free to speak your mind." The old man stopped in his tracks. Yi Chen looked at him steadily. "You can think of a way to get a lantern without an oil lamp. May I ask where to find the Pangu axe without its weapon spirit?" At that moment, the old man's body suddenly trembled, and a gleam flashed through his turbid eyes. In the next moment, he returned to his old appearance and walked downstairs shakily. He said to the customers, "I'm sorry, everyone. My shop is not doing business today. Please come back another day." As soon as he finished speaking, it immediately attracted the dissatisfaction of the crowd. "What? Not doing business? What are you doing?" "I said I'm not doing business, so I'm not doing business. What's with the nonsense?" The Patriarch of Hell suddenly roared, his face full of killing intent. Someone was furious. "Who do you think you are?" Bang! The Patriarch of Hell slapped out, turning into a huge hand and slamming that person to the ground. Seeing this, everyone saw that he was not an easy person to deal with. Their expressions changed, and they could only curse secretly and leave in a hurry. "Grandpa, I've bought the candles." At the same time, a crisp voice came from outside. Then, the young lady from before walked in with a large bag of candles. However, she realized that the customers in the room were long gone. "Grandpa, why did everyone leave?" The young lady frowned and asked in confusion. Close the door." The old man coughed and said, "We're not doing business today." "Why?" The young lady was even more confused. However, the old man did not explain. After noticing Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell, the young lady closed the door obediently. Bang! The moment the door was closed, the old man looked at the old man. The old man then looked at Yi Chen. There was a hint of bitterness on his old face. "I didn't expect you to find out." End of chapter. Chapter 1698. Late at night, the moon shone brightly in the sky. The candlelight in the tavern flickered, and the atmosphere seemed a little strange. Patriarch Yellow Spring shrouded the entire tavern with his divine consciousness. He stared at the hunchbacked old man and said, "Are you the weapon spirit of the Pangu axe?" The sharp glint in his eyes caused the young girl beside the hunchbacked old man to turn pale. "Who are you people?" The girl stood in front of the hunchbacked old man instinctively. She looked at Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell with extreme caution. "Ancestor, there's no need for that." Yi Chen shook his head lightly, signaling the Patriarch of Hell not to be rash. He then looked at the hunchbacked old man and said, "Do you want to have a chat?" The hunchbacked old man nodded with a bitter expression and ordered, "Go get some soy sauce beef." However, the girl did not move at all. She seemed to be worried about Yi Chen and the girl. "Go, Grandpa will be fine," the hunchbacked old man comforted him. After the former entered the kitchen, the hunchbacked old man gestured for Yi Chen to sit down. Yi Chen poured a bowl of wine for him and said while smiling lightly, "I didn't expect you to be hiding here." The hunchbacked old man drank a mouthful of wine, and his aged face turned rosy. "In fact, from the moment I left Pangu's axe, I had already expected this day, but I didn't expect it to come so soon." Fast? Patriarch Yellow Spring could not help but chuckle. Old man, you've been hiding for tens of thousands of years. No one in this world is older than you. Since the Pangu axe existed, this meant that the story of the creation of heaven and earth was not a rumor. In other words, when this world was born, the hunchbacked old man already existed. Yi Chen said in a deep voice, "May I know how to address you?" The hunchbacked old man sighed slightly. "You can call yourselves Gu Nu." Yi Chen could not help but look at the patriarch of hell. They saw confusion in each other's eyes. The artifact spirit of the spirit embryo on Earth actually had such a strange name. Yi Chen frowned and looked at him. "Fellow Gu, do you know the situation outside?" "A little." Gu Nu nodded slightly. In fact, there wasn't a day that he didn't pay attention to this world throughout the countless years that had passed. In the past few thousand years, he had lived a relatively peaceful life. However, ever since the arrival of the Outer Realm sects on Earth and the outbreak of the Devil disaster, he had lived a relatively peaceful life. He knew very well that he would be exposed one day. He could not help but look at Yi Chen as he thought to this point, "You're the so-called mad Southern Yi that people talk about, right? Of course, you can also call him Heavenly Lord Yi." Yi Chen nodded. "This world is in danger now. I believe fellow Gu knows better than anyone else. Therefore, I hope that you can take pity on the billions of living beings in this world and lend me a hand." After saying that, he couldn't help but stare at the former. Even Patriarch Yellow Spring turned to look. As far as he was concerned, this fellow before him was only an artifact spirit in the end. If he didn't agree, then the two of them would tie him up and bring him back. However, Gu Nu smiled and did not answer the question, "Do you know why the ancient deities came to Earth?" Yi Chen frowned slightly. "Didn't he sneak into the lower realm and get injured? Didn't he flee all the way here after being chased by many powerhouses in the spirit realm?" Hee. Gu Nu chuckled. "These words were told to you by the so-called foreign cultivators, Qianxia Wuhan and Path Master of Carnal Desires, right?" Before Yi Chen could speak, he continued, "Qianxia Wuhan and Path Master of Carnal Desires were both planted with immortal slave seals by the ancient deities. How can you believe their words?" Yi Chen's gaze changed when he heard that. He had to admit that the former's words had woken him up. Since Qianxia Wuhan was bewitched by the ancient deities, how could he know that what he said to Yi Chen earlier was also the ancient deities' instructions? Qianxia Wuhan and Path Master of Carnal Desires would tell Yi Chen whatever the ancient deities wanted him to know, even if it was just a lie. Thinking to this point, he immediately took a deep breath in and looked at Gu Nu. "May I know what fellow Gu has to say? I dare not claim to have a brilliant opinion. I'm just a loyal servant who has lived for a long time and witnessed much history." Gu Nu shook his head and changed the topic. "I believe you're no stranger to Pangu's creation of the world, right?" Yi Chen nodded slightly. Gu Nu smiled. "Then, let me ask you again. Do you think this is true? Does Pangu really exist?" His words made Yi Chen fall into silence. After noticing the former's profound expression, his pupils could not help but constrict. Could it really exist? Even in the immortal world, there were not many almighties who could create the world. Moreover, the so-called worlds that they created were mostly grotto heaven worlds. How could a mere grotto heaven world be compared to Earth? If this was true, what kind of existence was Pangu? As if sensing his confusion, Gu Nu smiled and said, "In this world, there are the Devil Clan, the Demon Clan, the Human Clan, the Immortal Clan, and 100 other clans. However, we've forgotten that there's a clan known as the God Clan." The God Clan? Yi Chen's eyes shone. It was not the first time he had heard of this term. At first, he had heard of it in the immortal world. There were also ruins in the immortal world. Often, many peerless treasures and terrifying existences would be unearthed in these ruins. End of this chapter. Chapter 1699. Once, Yi Chen found the skeleton of a giant in a ruin. The giant was extremely huge. In terms of size, it was probably tens of thousands of meters tall. As soon as the discovery was made, Yi Chen blocked it. After that, he looked through all kinds of information. After that, he found out that the giant was a member of the mysterious God clan. However, he could not find anything after that, so he could only order someone to seal the giant's corpse. On the other hand, the Patriarch of Hell was at a loss. God clan? I've seen a lot of things, but this is the first time I've heard of such an existence. Seeing his expression, Gu Nu smiled faintly. Seems like you've heard of it. It's said that the God clan is extremely mysterious. No one knows where their ancestral ground is. They only know that the descendants of this clan are born as innate God. Yi Chen nodded secretly when he heard that. He could not help but think of the 12 ancestral witches. Legend had it that the 12 ancestral witches were formed from Pangu's blood essence after his death. These 12 existences were all innate God. If the descendants of this clan grow up, they will have the ability to split the world apart and destroy many galaxies with a raise of their hand. The most special thing about the God clan is that every descendant can inherit the power of their ancestors. This is all because of the Godhead. Yi Chen was slightly stunned when he heard that. Godhead? That's right. Gu Nu nodded and said, this Godhead is something that every God clan member cultivates. All of their energy is gathered in it, and they can hand the Godhead to their descendants before they die. In the end, he could not help but look at Yi Chen. My master, Pangu, is a member of the God clan. As expected, Yi Chen was shocked. No wonder Pangu has such great ability. However, where did his Godhead go? That's a good question. Gu Nu smiled lightly. The suppressed immortal soul wants to know too. Boom. Yi Chen felt like countless bolts of lightning flashed through his mind as soon as he said that. He sat up in shock. So, you're saying that the ancient immortal escaping to Earth after being injured is fake, and it's real for the Pangu Godhead? Gu Nu smiled without saying anything. At the same time, the moment Yi Chen found Gu Nu, the 5-element divine mountain that had been standing quietly for a long time in the huge crack in the sky suddenly trembled. Then, it returned to dead silence. An hour later, at the entrance of the tavern, the girl named Rur cried like a big cat. She pulled Gu Nu's clothes reluctantly. Grandpa, when will you come back? Will you not want Rur any more? Foolish child. Gu Nu patted her head affectionately. Grandpa will be back soon. You have to guard this shop for Grandpa. Yes, Grandpa, don't worry. Rur will be obedient and will no longer be naughty and lazy. The little girl's tears flowed down. Gu Nu took one last look at the century-old tavern and the familiar street. A hint of sorrow flashed in his eyes. Let's go. He turned around and said to Yi Chen. Yi Chen glanced at Rur, who was trying to catch up to him. He waved his sleeve and disappeared with Gu Nu. Grandpa, don't leave Rur. A heart-wrenching cry came from the ground. In the void, Yi Chen glanced at Gu Nu. Don't worry. I'll take good care of this girl for you after this. Thank you. Gu Nu said gratefully. This girl has been a child since she was young. I adopted her and she's very filial. The group of people swept across the sky at an extremely fast speed, rushing towards the huge void in the sky. At the same time, countless figures flew over and met up with them, revealing the faces of Su Yuhan, the 4 witches, and the rest. Su Yuhan looked at Yi Chen in surprise. Xiaochen, you found it? Yi Chen nodded and said to everyone, everyone, wait for me on the ground. Under everyone's gazes, he plunged into the huge rift that resembled the Milky Way like a graceful swan. The 5-element divine mountain stood majestically. Yi Chen appeared in front of him alone. Rumble. As the 5-element divine mountain shook slightly, an extremely dignified voice came from it. How was it? Did you find the world spirit embryo artifact spirit? Fortunately, I didn't let you down. Yi Chen smiled lightly. Very good. The 5-element divine mountain shook more and more frequently. Very good. That ancient immortal will be free in 3 days. You being able to return in advance can be considered a great hope for this world. As long as I let the artifact spirit return to the world spirit embryo, you can obtain the world spirit embryo to fight that ancient immortal. Leave the artifact spirit to me. The five-element divine mountain's voice was extremely excited. Sure. Yi Chen waved his sleeve and Gu Nu appeared before him immediately. He pointed at the latter. This person is the reincarnation of the world spirit embryo artifact spirit. The world suddenly fell into dead silence. The five-element divine mountain fell into silence. After a while, it spoke again. How did you find out? If one listened carefully, this voice was not as dignified and holy as before. Instead, there was a hint of anger in it. Yi Chen waved his hand and Gu Nu in front of him turned into a strand of hair. Then, he looked at the five-element divine mountain and said, "You were too impatient and exposed too many problems. I believe that as long as you're not a fool, you'll be able to tell that something's wrong." End of this chapter. Chapter 1700. The five-element divine mountain trembled and was on the verge of collapse. Yi Chen stood with his hands behind his back and looked at it quietly. "From the moment you were born, I knew there was something wrong with you." "Why?" The five-element divine mountain shook. "It's simple." Yi Chen smiled lightly and said, "The real five-element divine mountain must be a trick left behind by the great Emperor Xianyuan. If even he doesn't know where the artifact spirit of Panga's axe is, how could you carve the talisman on my palm?" "That's one of the reasons," Yi Chen continued. "I started to suspect you back then. After using your mysterious talisman and finding the reincarnation of Panga's axe artifact spirit, I concluded that there was something wrong with you." "What else?" The five-element divine mountain seemed to be roaring. Yi Chen said, "Also, after you brought the reincarnation of Panga's axe artifact spirit here, you were too excited. The price of being excited was that you faintly emitted a hint of hostility." As soon as he said that, the void fell into silence. A moment later, the five-element divine mountain laughed out of extreme anger. "I didn't expect you to be so smart, but so what? It was just an idea I had on the spur of the moment." Rumble. The five-element divine mountain shook violently. A figure slowly walked out of the five-element divine mountain. The figure was no longer in a sorry state like before. The figure looked extremely old, but in Yi Chen's eyes, there were golden divine flames surging around his body like a sun. Yi Chen squinted and said, "I'm very curious. Where did the real five-element divine mountain's mountain spirit go?" "Naturally, it was devoured by me." The old man smiled lightly. There was no aura coming from his body at all, but it gave Yi Chen an extremely dangerous feeling. "Back then, the great Emperor Xianyuan took advantage of my severe injuries to seal and suppress me under this five-element divine mountain. He set up many runes and divine formations and sent an immortal puppet to guard this place. When the old man was less than 2 steps away from Yi Chen, he suddenly waved his sleeve. The scene before him changed immediately, and a table appeared. He waved his sleeve again, and a pot of wine appeared on the table. He sat down directly and filled Yi Chen's cup. He said while smiling, "It's a pity. It's a pity that great Emperor Xianyuan overestimated me. The moment I was suppressed, he forcefully tore apart 2 divine consciousnesses and arranged 2 chess pieces." Yi Chen's pupils constricted when he heard that. "So, you're saying that Qianxu Wuhan and the Path of Desire were controlled by the immortal slave seal at that time?" "Of course." The old man smiled. After that, great Emperor Xianyuan thought he had nothing to worry about and actually stepped onto the heavenly road. After countless years, I have been enduring and lying low, all for this day. Otherwise, however, Yi Chen shook his head and said, "Great Emperor Xianyuan missed an important point in the end. You didn't escape to this realm because you were severely injured. You did it for the Pangu divine clan's godhead." At that moment, a dazzling divine gleam exploded from the old man's eyes, causing Yi Chen to almost be blinded. However, this divine light quickly dissipated, and he returned to normal. Hee, I didn't expect you to discover even this ancient secret. You're quite extraordinary. Since that's the case, I'll get straight to the point. The old man stared at him fixedly. Give me the artifact spirit of the Pangu axe, and I'll spare the lives of the living beings in this world. I'll also swear to leave this world and never return. Of course, you have a better choice. Before Yi Chen could speak, he continued, secondly, give me the artifact spirit of the Pangu axe, and I can accept you as a registered disciple. I'll teach you divinity and immortal spells. I guarantee that you'll be ranked among the immortals in the future. What do you think? One had to admit that both of his conditions were extremely tempting, especially the second one. If it were anyone else, they would definitely not be able to resist it. However, Yi Chen shook his head. You're not willing? The old man's expression gradually darkened. Golden divine flames danced on his body as if they contained a storm that could shake the world. I don't believe you. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Your nonsense can only deceive ordinary people, but not me. I'll give you a chance. If you leave this realm now, I won't do anything. Shameless boasting. The old man laughed angrily. Young man, you have to think before you do anything. There's no medicine for regret in this world. Every wrong step you take will cost you an unbearable price. Are you threatening me? Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. So what if I'm threatening you? The old man suddenly opened his mouth and turned into a terrifying vortex that devoured everything. Then, hundreds of people were swept up from the ground closest to him. Then, they entered his mouth and disappeared completely. There were even cultivators with high cultivation bases. Cannibalism. This fiend was devouring the people of this world, right in front of Yi Chen. How dare you? Yi Chen kept pointing at him. Then, he moved forward quickly. Invisible killing intent swept across the surroundings. Come here and accept your death. This time, he was completely enraged. The old man finished the tea in his cup and disappeared instantly. Then, he appeared before Yi Chen, who was thousands of kilometers away. Chapter 1701. The old man stood with his hands behind his back with a cold smile on his face. Moreover, when I was injured back then, Qianqiu Wuhan and the other big shots from the spirit world failed to kill me even when they joined forces. Do you think you can do it? Die. Yi Chen shouted and took a step forward. Heaven and earth shook. He had to defeat this ancient immortal. For his parents, for Yuhan, for his children, and for the billions of living beings in this world. Almost at that instant, the Patriarch of Hell, Su Yuhan, and many other cultivators on the ground sensed the scene on a whim. Shaochen? Heavenly Lord Yi. Subsequently, countless figures ran over from all corners of the world. They stood in the distance and sized up Yi Chen and the ancient immortal. Who is he? He's so powerful. Heavens, I feel like I'm suffocating before him. This is a terrifying existence. He's even more powerful than Heavenly Lord Yi. Ancient immortal, he must be that ancient immortal. An unknown person let out a hysterical roar, causing everyone to be startled. After which, fear and despair were revealed on their faces. Earth's great enemy, an ancient immortal, had appeared. It's over. At that moment, many people felt despair. Seeing that Yuhan seemed to want to help him, Yi Chen could not help but roar, Yuhan, get everyone to retreat now. I'll be here. The ancient immortal could eat humans. If he attacked again, Yi Chen could not guarantee that he could save everyone. No. Yuhan looked determined. She took a step forward and stood side by side with Yi Chen. She gritted her teeth softly. I want to fight alongside you. Well said, there's still us. At the next moment, the Patriarch of Hell, Yang Tian, the four witches, and the rest of Earth's peak combat power stood next to Yi Chen. They knew very well that if Yi Chen was no match for such a great enemy, they would not be able to escape death even if they fled to the ends of the world. Since that was the case, why not stay and fight to the death? An ant trying to shake a tree, you overestimate yourself. The old man smirked coldly. The coldness in his eyes was like the depths of hell, as if he was looking at a few weak ants. Kill! Yi Chen let out a long roar. He then waved his sleeve and sent Yuhan and the rest flying when they were not paying attention. Little Chen. Lord Yi! Everyone shed tears of sorrow. Yi Chen acted like he did not hear that. He looked at the old man calmly. Next, it's time for you and me to fight. Kill! Yi Chen shouted softly. His voice was like a sword hum, causing the entire world to shake. He activated all the true essence in his body, causing his physical body and true essence to erupt to the extreme, launching the most terrifying attack. Such a stunning strike illuminated the past, present, and future as it pierced through the heavens. Boom! Immediately after, a golden dragon roared in front of him. It furiously swept across the sky and charged towards the old man. Xianyuan's sword? The old man calmly walked forward. If Great Emperor Xianyuan was still here and wielded this weapon, I might have to be wary. Unfortunately, you can't. At the same time, he raised his finger lightly and tapped lightly towards the ray of light from the Xianyuan's sword that assaulted his face. His thumb was like a mountain as it struck the blade of the Xianyuan sword fiercely. Immediately, a terrifying destructive force surged towards Yi Chen through the sword. Yi Chen's arm trembled. He could no longer hold the Xianyuan sword, causing it to fall out of his hand. Lord Yi! Everyone's expressions changed drastically when they saw that. Slashing the stars, Yi Chen gripped the Xianyuan sword that had returned to his hand tightly and released the highest sword intent that he had mastered. Buzz! Before him, a monstrous sword intent soared through the sky. The sword gleam cut through the world, releasing a power that could make heaven and earth pale in comparison. What a powerful sword intent! The old man was shocked as well. His pupils constricted violently, and he seemed to be stunned. I didn't expect that you're only at Dao integration stage, yet you're actually able to unleash such a strike that's close to the power of an immortal. However, it's still not enough. He shook his head again and pointed at Yi Chen gently. Gotcha! A crack appeared on the Xianyuan sword. Even Yi Chen could not withstand it. His body was sent flying and shot out like a meteor. The ancient immortal defeated Yi Chen with just 2 fingers. At that moment, everyone looked at that scene in despair. The Earth number 1 in their eyes had been defeated. Moreover, he had been defeated so quickly. It's over, it's over. Earth is completely over. Countless people spat blood and beat their chests and stomped their feet. Shaochen, Old Yi, Su Yuhan, Yang Tian, and the rest shouted. Ah! The old man stood proudly in the air like a god. His aura shook everything. The so-called Earth number 1 is nothing more than this. This is the difference between an immortal and a mortal. To me, you're still ants. As soon as he finished speaking, an explosion came from the void. Then, a figure that looked like a demon lord descended from the mortal world. It's too early for you to be happy. Yi Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and looked at him coldly. The battle between us has just begun. You actually withstood my heaven-seizing 7 fingers. The old man's expression finally changed. How is this possible? Chapter 1702. Heavenly Lord Yi isn't dead? God bless our Earth. The moment they saw Yi Chen appear again, the people who were originally in despair could not help but cry tears of joy. It could be said that Yi Chen was the hope of the entire Earth now. Once he was defeated, the entire Earth would be finished. It was because the ancient immortal was just too powerful. Meanwhile, the ancient immortal glared at Yi Chen. Yi Chen did not die under his heaven-seizing 7 fingers. The so-called heaven-seizing 7 fingers. It was a spell from the immortal world. Every move of this spell had the miraculous effect of seizing heaven and earth. Even though the ancient immortal was not at his peak, even an ordinary tribulation stage powerhouse would not be able to withstand it. However, Yi Chen managed to withstand it. How could he not be shocked? Heaven seizing 7 fingers? Yi Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and said to him coldly, "This world belongs to me. What are you going to use to take it?" "Kill." After saying that, he charged at the ancient immortal with all his might again. Boom, boom, boom. The sky was howling and the earth was roaring. It was as if the world was about to turn upside down. It was as if the earth had returned to the ancient times, when humans and gods existed together and demons were kings. The sky cracked open and thunder rumbled. The terrifying aura spread to the ground as Yi Chen and the ancient immortal fought. Billions of living beings could not resist it and bowed their heads to the ground. Boom! Another terrifying explosion that shook the earth and the sky was collapsing. Countless cracks appeared in the void, and a terrifying spatial storm surged out. Within a few breaths, Yi Chen had fought the ancient immortal more than 100 times in the sky. The fluctuations that they caused were no different from the end of the world. Yi Chen's black hair fluttered as he formed a seal with both hands. He pointed one hand at the sky and the other at the ground. Then, he closed his palms slowly. There was actually star power in his palms. Boom! With a loud bang, a power that seemed like the destruction of stars erupted from his hands. At the same time, an extremely cold voice came from his mouth. "Heaven imprisoning finger." Swoosh! At that moment, the entire sky seemed to have turned upside down. Then, the sky darkened at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yi Chen stood in the air. The galaxy behind him flowed backward like a god. This is forcefully changing the weather. Someone sucked in a breath of cold air and said with a horrified expression, "This is no longer a level that humans can achieve. This technique doesn't belong to the human world." Old Ancestor Yellow Spring's pupils constricted violently as he concluded. Under everyone's gazes, the surrounding space rapidly fluctuated, as though it had turned into a huge cage. With the ancient immortal at the center, it rapidly shrouded him. With such a strong move, that ancient immortal shouldn't be able to do anything, right? Someone muttered subconsciously. The old man was slightly startled and a golden light flashed across his eyes. "It's actually a high-grade immortal art. You're just a lowly ant, yet you're able to execute a high-grade immortal art. No wonder you have such strength. Unfortunately, your cultivation is insufficient. Even if you forcefully execute a high-grade immortal art, you're still unable to do anything to me." After saying that, he raised his finger again and pointed at the space cage that was coming from all directions. Boom! In an instant, terrifying collapsing noises rang out in the void, and countless pieces of space were forcefully shattered. "The immortal art isn't bad, but your cultivation level is too low," the old man pointed at Yi Chen again. Blurred. Yi Chen could not hold it in anymore. He spat a mouthful of scarlet blood out of his mouth. Golden red blood flowed down his chin and drenched his clothes. His aura had also become a lot weaker. It had to be said that the enemy he had encountered this time was the most powerful one he had encountered since returning to Earth. The other party was an ancient immortal. Even though he was only a golden immortal at his peak, he was not like him after all. His physical body had been destroyed, and his spiritual energy had been cultivated from the beginning. Seeing this scene, everyone's heart sank completely. Someone could not help but cry anymore. Could it be that the earth was doomed? The old man took a step forward and looked at Yi Chen, who was in the air. "Submit. Submitting to me is the only way to survive. Seeing that you have good potential, my previous condition is still valid. As long as you hand over the reincarnation of the Pangu Axe's artifact spirit, I can spare your life. I can spare the billions of living beings in this world." Yi Chen fell silent when he heard that. On the ground, someone could not help but cry, "Heavenly Lord Yi, hand it over. Stop holding on. You're no match for him. Little Chen, don't fight anymore." Yi Chen's parents were almost blinded by tears. "You'll die if you continue fighting. You heard that, right?" The old man looked at Yi Chen and continued, "Everyone doesn't want you to continue fighting. Many of them don't want to be buried with you. Since that's the case, why are you holding on? Ha ha ha! All of a sudden, Yi Chen burst out in laughter. The old man's expression turned cold. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing at how arrogant you are. Yi Chen looked at him with a pale face. A cold smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. Haven't you realized anything from the beginning to the end? The old man was stunned at first, and then his expression changed. Pangu Axe, your real target is the Pangu Axe? Chapter 1703. That's right. Yi Chen stood up slowly and looked at him as if he was sneering. If I really had the ability to fight you, why would I bother to look for the artifact spirit of Panga's axe? In the end, isn't Panga's axe the only thing that can help me kill you? After he finished speaking, the space behind him suddenly distorted. Then, a black figure slowly walked out from within. The black figure wore a black dragon robe, like a demon ancestor descending to the mortal world. If one took a closer look, they would discover that he was eating a giant golden axe. The giant axe was dazzling and enshrouded in divine radiance. It was impossible to look at it directly, as if one was facing 100 suns at the same time. Panga's axe. The old man's expression finally changed. Ing held Panga's axe and looked at Yi Chen with an extremely complicated expression. Yi Chen, I'm lucky to have accomplished my mission. He had witnessed the battle between Yi Chen and the ancient immortal earlier. He had to admit that even he was ashamed of his inferiority. Thank you. Yi Chen nodded lightly and took the Panga's axe. At first, he felt like he was carrying 100 mountains. Then, the weight lightened. The turmoil in this world is too great. Panga's axe has consumed a lot of origin energy to stabilize this world. This ancient immortal's cultivation base seems to be on Mahayana. I can't kill him completely with my current strength. Gu Nu, who had already entered Panga's axe, said through voice transmission, I still need to borrow the divine item in your body. Are you talking about the immortal slaying flying saber? Yi Chen's eyes flickered. That's right. Gu Nu said, I can sense that the divine item in your body is extraordinary. It's even above mine. Unfortunately, it seems to be damaged and can't use its full strength. I know what to do. Yi Chen's lips moved slightly. You just have to do your best. Leave the rest to me. Alright. Sizzle. At the next moment, Yi Chen held Panga's axe in his hand. He swung the axe. Swoosh, suddenly, heaven and earth were completely severed, and the entire world seemed to have fallen into endless darkness. At that moment, everyone could see a thin line that was as bright as lightning. The thin line was extremely dazzling. Panga's axe was a spirit fetus of earth. As Panga's weapon, its power was unquestionable. If it were to completely awaken, a single strike would be able to split the heavens and earth apart, and it would be able to sever the sun, moon, and stars. In that instant, millions upon millions of strands of golden light appeared, drowning out the endless darkness. It was like divine radiance, resplendent and dazzling. At the same time, the ancient immortal's expression finally changed as Yi Chen swung his axe. Immortal, imperishable body. The ancient immortal let out a deafening roar. Countless streams of light burst forth from his body, wrapping around him like a giant cocoon. Immortal, indestructible body. This was the innate divine ability of an ancient immortal. It was also a life-saving divine ability. Any ancient immortal would only have one chance to use it in their lifetime. Other than them, no immortal who ascended from the lower realm, no matter how strong or weak their cultivation was, would have this kind of talent. Even Yi Chen was no exception. Bang! The heavens and the earth seemed to have exploded, and the ground shook incessantly, as if it could collapse at any time due to the weight. At this moment, everyone was in despair. Despair was so powerful. Ah! The old man yelled as the myriad of streaks of light that wrapped around his body instantly crumbled. The remaining lightning didn't lose its momentum and directly split his body into two. The world returned to peace. After an unknown period of time, someone finally recovered from the shock of the earlier scene. He stammered, Win? We won? Xiaochen? When Su Yuhan and the rest woke up, their first reaction was to look for Yi Chen. They heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the familiar figure in the air. We won. God bless our Earth! All hail Heavenly Lord Yi! In an instant, countless deafening cheers erupted in the world, as if they had survived a calamity. Xiaochen! Su Yuhan cried tears of joy and wanted to hug Yi Chen by instinct. Don't come over! However, at that moment, Yi Chen suddenly shouted. At the next moment, before everyone could react, they saw Yi Chen's body rising rapidly as if something was holding him up. When they saw the thing under him clearly, the world immediately fell into a deathly silence. It was like a mountain. Someone was shocked to discover that it was a silver-white creature. Its entire body was surrounded by chaotic energy, and there was a pair of pure white bone wings on its back. The reason why it looked like a mountain was because its body was too huge. Because its body was too big, the devil chi mixed with the corpse chi kept rolling on its body, as if a part of hell was about to be born. What's that? Everyone shuddered at the scene before them. Suddenly, someone said with a trembling voice, This is the corpse of that ancient immortal. It's the corpse of that ancient immortal. Its corpse has been demonized. The person who spoke was the golden ape. That was because he had once followed the world guardian, the Tao of nature. Back then, great Emperor Xianyuan deliberately separated his immortal soul and immortal body to help the ancient immortal escape. Meanwhile, what Yi Chen killed earlier was merely an existence manifested after the ancient immortal's immortal soul devoured the 5 elements divine mountain spirit. Chapter 1704. Rumble. A terrifying energy storm spread between heaven and earth. At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the mountain-like giant in the sky. The silver-white creature's entire body was filled with black and white energy, and there was a pair of black and white wings on its back. A demonized ancient immortal's immortal body? Yi Chen's expression finally turned extremely grim when he sensed the monstrous murderous aura coming from the former. He did not expect the ancient immortal's immortal body to be demonized. It seemed like it was a little troublesome now. The demonized ancient immortal's immortal body stood in the air. He looked down at Yi Chen with a pair of lantern-like eyes. Surprised, aren't you? He had a spurious smile on his face. How do you think this demon disaster broke out? Why do you think the world barrier of this world shattered? Could it be all because of you? Yi Chen's eyes were cold. So what if it's me? The demonized ancient immortal body sneered. Back then, when that kid Xianyuan separated my corpse and soul, I had already expected this outcome. Therefore, I ordered Qianqu Wuhan and the path of carnal desire to break through the world barrier of this world and attract the demonic energy to descend. The final goal is to nurture my immortal body. I can't go back to the immortal world. Since that's the case, why don't I turn into a demon and head to the devil world in the future? His voice was like the roar of an ancient cosmic beast, causing everyone's scalps to go numb. I'd like to see what else you have up your sleeves this time. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward and let out a roar. He charged at Yi Chen like a Taotai descending into the world. Heavenly Lord Yi! At that moment everyone's breathing froze. Could Yi Chen still bring hope? I can't help you anymore. At the same time, the Pangu axe in his hand sighed faintly. That attack just now has almost exhausted all of its origin power. Is there really no hope? Yi Chen's eyes flickered and he said slowly, otherwise. At the next moment, a dazzling object that looked like the core of the sun appeared in his hand, supreme-grade immortal jade melt. This was the only source of energy that supported the World Guardian's immortal puppet, supreme-grade immortal jade. It was also given to him by the World Guardian before it died. Previously, when he was in seclusion, he had devoured all the other immortal jades, leaving only this piece of supreme-grade immortal jade. At that time, Yi Chen knew very well that there was a huge gap between the unification stage and the tribulation stage. It could not be bridged with a piece of supreme-grade immortal jade. Moreover, once he stepped into the tribulation stage, he would definitely attract the 6 in 9 heavenly tribulation, which would bring about many disasters and karma. Only then did he forcefully resist the thought of devouring this supreme-grade immortal jade. And it was all for this moment. He muttered, "Immortal slaying!" Boom! In the next moment, as the supreme-grade immortal jade rapidly melted, a terrifying storm surged from the top of his head, faintly forming a peerless blade light. Immortal slaying! When the word immortal was heard, a shocking blade light suddenly broke through the air and instantly appeared in front of the ancient immortal's demonic body. This was a terrifying pressure and power that made the world lose its color, made the sun and moon lose their light, suppressed everything, able to cut through all living things. What's this? The ancient immortal that had turned into an immortal body was shocked. This saber light was simply too fast, causing him to feel a tinge of danger. The immortal slaying flying saber that had absorbed the supreme-grade immortal jade finally erupted with 1% of its peak power. Even though it was only 1%, it still caused the ancient immortal's demonic body to tremble. Is this a primordial chaos great Luo immortal artifact? The ancient immortal's demonic body sucked in a breath of cold air, his face filled with shock. Then, he frantically moved his body, trying to avoid this fatal attack. However, his body was simply too large, and the immortal slaying flying saber's speed was unparalleled. You actually have a primordial chaos great Luo immortal artifact. Who exactly are you? The ancient immortal's demonic body screamed and roared. He was terrified to the extreme, feeling that he did not dare to resist this aura. The so-called primordial chaos great Luo immortal artifact. In the immortal world, the number of people who possessed it could be counted on one hand. These people were all peerless immortal kings or immortal lords. In an instant, his entire body was wrapped in the saber gleam, and he let out a loud cry. His body was cracking rapidly, as if it was about to disintegrate. Even though his body was an immortal body, the immortal slaying flying saber happened to break an immortal body. This was a confrontation of laws and a crushing of power. He could not dodge or resist. Let me go. The ancient immortal's demonic body hurriedly shouted in shock. I'm willing to swear on my Tao heart that as long as you let me go, I'll leave this world immediately and never return. At this moment, he finally felt the aura of death. Even great Emperor Xianyuan back then had not given him such a feeling. Yi Chen's eyes were cold, and his voice was like thunder. Crack! The body of the ancient immortal that had been demonized began to crumble. It was like a mirror that had been smashed, and more cracks appeared. No, he screamed crazily, his face filled with fear, shock, helplessness, grief, and despair. I can't accept this. End of this chapter. Chapter 1705. Boom. Immediately after, his legs exploded first, causing a large amount of blood to spurt out. Then, his chest exploded and his body rapidly collapsed. The endless saber intent that enveloped him almost made him explode. No, I really don't want to die. The ancient immortal body that had been demonized roared with all its might, trying to find any opening in the void to escape. Bang! In just a few breaths of time, only a head was left. When its trembling eyes saw Yi Chen, it did not know if it was an illusion, but it actually saw a speechless phantom of a god who seemed to be sitting on the throne of the 9 heavens, immortal emperor. Heavenly Emperor! The remaining consciousness of the ancient immortal shook violently, as if it was in disbelief. How could he be the heavenly emperor? Impossible! He can't be the heavenly emperor. I, exalted immortal Gu Hua, boast that I am flawless. I never thought that I would die in a mere chiliocosm. It growled as if it was pitiful. As its consciousness gradually weakened, a magical bottle that it had accidentally obtained appeared in its eyes. It was also through this magical bottle that it learned that there was a mysterious race in this world. This race was known as the God race, an existence that even the ancient immortals feared like tigers. In order to pursue the secret of the God race, it had exhausted all its efforts to deduce a trace of heavenly secrets. It disregarded its injuries and escaped to the lower realm. Then, it was hunted down by many tribulation almighties in the spirit world. In the end, it fled all the way to this world called the celestial burial planet. To its surprise, it discovered that the celestial burial planet was created by a member of the God race. What made it even more ecstatic was that this member of the God race had actually died, leaving behind the God race's inheritance Godhead. Unexpectedly, before it could be happy, it was stopped by the natives of this world. One of the humans known as the Great Emperor Xianyuan suppressed it here. "I can't accept this," with the last roar, the remaining head of the ancient immortal body exploded, turning into countless specks of light that scattered between heaven and earth. The existence that made the entire earth despair was finally killed by Yi Chen at this moment. The world fell silent. Everyone trembled as they watched this scene. Was the disaster hanging over their heads finally over? After some time, everyone who was in a desperate situation was so excited that their eyes were filled with tears. Subsequently, all of them knelt on one knee toward Yi Chen. "We will never forget Heavenly Lord's saving grace." Almost at that instant, people from every corner of the planet knelt down on one knee in different directions. The sincere and excited voices gathered together and shook the entire universe. At that moment, the four grand sorcerers and the others looked at each other, then they also knelt on one knee and shouted, "We greet the mad Southern Emperor." Since ancient times, the only person who could be called a great emperor was the great Emperor Xianyuan. Yi Chen had done what the great Emperor Xianyuan could not. How could he not be called the great emperor? The voices of the four people seemed to be able to reach every corner of the world, as if they could reach everyone's mind. "We greet the mad Southern Emperor." In the next moment, voices from all over the world converged, eventually forming an extremely terrifying storm. The storm was like the voice of the world. At this moment, the figure standing tall in the void. To them, it was no different from an immortal descending to the mortal world. Killing an immortal by himself, if he was not an immortal, what was he? He had saved the entire world and billions of living beings in this world by himself. Everyone knew very well that Yi Chen was no longer the Earth's number one. To be more precise, he was the master of Earth. Yi Chen looked at the devastated world and heard the earth-shattering shouts. The pressure that had been suppressed in his heart for a long time was completely released. That was close. He had just used up his last supreme-grade immortal jade. If the immortal slaying flying dagger could not kill him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, the outcome did not disappoint him. The immortal slaying flying dagger was indeed worthy of its name. At this moment, a light that seemed like it could dim at any time fell into his hand, revealing the immortal slaying flying dagger. The immortal slaying flying dagger said weakly, "Venerable Emperor, I've exhausted too much of my origin. I might have to sleep for a while. Don't worry and sleep. I'll heal you." Yi Chen nodded lightly. He opened his mouth and swallowed it into his body to nurture. However, in the next moment, a chaotic and shocking image appeared in his mind. The owner of the image was the ancient immortal. Yi Chen's heart skipped a beat. Is this an ancient immortal's memory intercepted by the immortal slaying flying dagger? Exalted immortal Gu Hua, the immortal drift bottle, the secret of the God clan. As the memories were digested, golden light flashed in his eyes from time to time. It's exactly the same as my previous speculation. The immortal drift bottle in his body was obtained by the ancient immortal by accident. The original immortal drift bottle had a cap, and the secret of the God clan was hidden on the cap. However, the ancient immortal had lost the cap when he was escaping. Therefore, after Yi Chen obtained the immortal drift bottle, he did not know what it did. He only knew that it had a miraculous effect of accelerating ripening. God Clan. Yi Chen lifted his eyes slightly and looked at the world as if he wanted to see through everything. Pangu, where is the godhead you left behind? End of this chapter. Chapter 1706. As the ancient immortal died, the entire earth regained its long-lost peace. The entire earth regained its long-lost peace. However, legends about Yi Chen were spreading all over the world. Countless people set up statues of Yi Chen in their homes to thank him for saving the world. They bathed in incense and prayed day and night. The reason being Yi Chen was like a god to the entire earth. Every country in the world sent envoys to China to express their gratitude. Even the United States, which claimed to be the ruler of the world, was no exception. All of a sudden, China became the holy land of earth. Countless cultivators and ordinary people traveled thousands of kilometers to China just to worship the Holy Land in their hearts. They just wanted to see the God in their hearts up close. A month later, at the back mountain of the Yi residence in Lin City, Tiannan, China, Yi Chen sat lazily on the grass with a blade of grass in his mouth. He looked at the 3 children who were playing in the distance lovingly. Throughout the month, he had rejected any visits from outsiders. He seemed to be enjoying this peaceful time. Rustle, rustle, rustle. At that moment, a fragrant wind blew from afar. Suddenly, a warm hand covered her eyes from behind. Then, an extremely gentle voice rang in her ear. "Guess who I am?" Yi Chen chuckled softly. He turned around and pressed her under him. He kissed the beauty's exquisite face. "No, don't!" Su Yuhan panicked and pushed him away immediately. Her entire face was as red as if it was dripping blood. Yi Chen kissed her forcefully before letting her go. He lay next to her softly and said with his hands under his head, "Let's see if you still dare to tease me. Xiaochen, why do you think so many people want to become an immortal?" Su Yuhan suddenly lay on him and looked at him calmly. "Is becoming an immortal really that attractive?" "Becoming an immortal," Yi Chen mumbled, "that's just what people think when they escape fear. Instead of saying that they want to become immortals, it's better to say that they're afraid of death. As the saying goes, those who obey will become mortals, and those who disobey will become immortals. In reality, those who obey will die, and those who disobey will have a chance of survival." Afraid of death? Su Yuhan was slightly stunned, and then she seemed to understand. That's right. Since ancient times, birth, aging, sickness, and death have been everyone's nightmare. Everyone wants to live longer, or even immortality. She suddenly asked, "Xiaochen, are you afraid of death?" "Why wouldn't I be afraid?" Yi Chen said while smiling, "If I die, I won't be able to see you, much less our child." Su Yuhan fell silent. After an unknown period of time, she sighed faintly. "What if, one day, I disappear in front of your eyes?" Yi Chen's body froze slightly when he heard that. He then looked at her with an extremely complicated expression. "How much of your past life do you remember exactly?" For the past month, he had been deliberately avoiding this question. It wasn't that he didn't want to face it, but that he didn't dare to. But in the end, he still found that he was deceiving himself. Su Yuhan was the reincarnation of the Netherlord. If she continued to be the weak lady she used to be, perhaps she would be happy with Yi Chen for the rest of her life. However, this was ultimately unrealistic. If Su Yuhan did not cultivate, her lifespan would definitely run out one day. Yi Chen would not allow his woman to only accompany him for decades. However, if Su Yuhan cultivated and became more powerful, the distance between her and the identity of the Netherlord would be shortened greatly. This was a paradoxical problem. Therefore, Yi Chen had never dared to face it. Su Yuhan bit her lip hard when she met his gaze. She eventually nodded. "I remember a lot. Xiaochen, do you know? The more I remember, the more afraid I am, because I'm afraid of leaving you." Yi Chen held her hand by instinct upon hearing that and said in a deep voice, "Then, don't think about anything else. Is that possible? Su Yuhan forced a smile. During this period of time, I feel like my body doesn't belong to me as soon as I close my eyes. I've seen many scenes. I've seen a familiar yet unfamiliar shadow. It's even a terrifying shadow. As she spoke, her body began to shake uncontrollably as if she was enduring great pressure and pain. Yi Chen hugged her immediately and whispered into her ear, "Remember, no matter what happens to you, I'm here. As long as I'm here, nobody can change you." Su Yuhan nodded lightly and snuggled in his embrace. She watched the three children playing far away quietly and could not help but reveal a motherly glow on her face. "Xiaochen, I really want to spend the rest of my life with you like this. I want to watch Mingming grow up, I want to watch Yiming grow up." No one knew how long had passed, but she had already fallen asleep in Yi Chen's embrace. Her eyelashes trembled slightly, and there seemed to be pain on her beautiful face. "Netherlord," Yi Chen's gaze turned cold. "Even if you're the demon ancestor, you can't separate me from Yuhan, let alone the Netherlord. I'd like to see how your remaining spirituality affects my woman." After saying that, he carried Su Yuhan and disappeared from where he was. The clouds formed a formation 10,000 kilometers high in the sky. Yi Chen put Su Yuhan down gently and sat with his legs crossed. He separated a wisp of divine consciousness and slowly entered Su Yuhan's Mudball Palace. The Mudball Palace was the place where a person's primordial spirit resided. It was extremely sensitive. If it was affected by the slightest external force, it would turn one into an idiot. Chapter 1707. What shocked Yi Chen was, Su Yuhan's Mudball Palace was a dark place, as if it was hell with no end. It was cold and dark. At the end of the darkness, a faint gleam flashed. Subsequently, a black lotus flew toward Yi Chen slowly. There was a dignified silhouette standing on the black lotus faintly, exuding a domineering aura. The silhouette looked exactly like Su Yuhan, but her eyes were filled with nobility. "You're finally here, Lord?" Yi Chen's eyes flickered. The silhouette shook her head lightly and said, "No, I'm your woman, Su Yuhan." "Nonsense." Yi Chen laughed out of anger. "There's nothing I can do if you don't admit it." The silhouette sighed softly and said, "The real Lord was destroyed in that battle back then. Only an obsession is left in this world." "Obsession?" Yi Chen frowned. "That's right, it's indeed an obsession." The silhouette nodded and said, "The Lord has fallen a long time ago, but her obsession still exists. Her people are being enslaved now. They're in dire straits and can't be saved. That's her obsession." She was peerless and arrogant. She suppressed the spirit world single-handedly, but she was killed by a perfected immortal who descended to the spirit world. She was indignant. "That's her obsession," Yi Chen said coldly upon hearing that. "Since it's an obsession, why don't you return to the dust as soon as possible? Why are you staying in this world to harm people? May I ask if you can get rid of your obsession, my Lord Immortal Emperor?" The silhouette smiled lightly and looked at Yi Chen quietly. "Your existence is even more than the Lord. You're the 9 heavens Immortal Emperor who rules over thousands of worlds. However, you were betrayed by your sinful disciple. Not only were you dragged down from the Immortal Emperor throne, many of your old subordinates are either dead or crippled. Can you choose to forget all of that?" She was a part of Su Yuhan's consciousness, so naturally, she knew Yi Chen's secret. After all, Yi Chen had told Su Yuhan the secret since the beginning. "No!" Yi Chen scoffed. Yi Chen was a vengeful person. The battle in the immortal world back then had a great impact on him. How could he forget it? What's more, even if he was willing to forget, the people in the immortal world would not be able to live in peace unless he was dead. Even everyone related to him was dead. Since that's the case, what qualifications do you have to make the Netherlord give up his obsession? The beautiful figure smiled and said without any hint of mockery, "Why don't we make a deal?" "What deal?" Yi Chen asked. She slowly opened her mouth and said, The reason why you dislike me and the underworld lords so much is because you think that I will affect your woman and even allow her to steal her away from you. Aren't you? Yi Chen scoffed. No. She shook her head and said, the Netherlord is dead. I'm just an obsession. Let alone possessing Su Yuhan, it's difficult for me to even influence her. She'll still be Su Yuhan. The only difference is that she's accepted the Netherlord's ability and inheritance. Naturally, she'll bear the responsibility of the Netherlord. So, I hope to make a deal with you. She looked at Yi Chen and said, no matter if it's you or me, don't influence any of Su Yuhan's choices. In return, I can promise that when you return to the immortal world in the future, the hundreds of millions of troops from the underworld will be your strongest support. Do you think that's possible? Yi Chen chuckled. Why not? She frowned slightly and said, don't forget that with your and Su Yuhan's identities, you're a huge threat to both the spirit world and the immortal world. Think about what kind of situation you'll face when the spirit world or the immortal world find out about your existence. That exalted immortal Gu Hua is just a golden immortal, and he doesn't even have much of his strength left, yet he made you look so pathetic. What if a zenith heaven golden immortal descends to this world next? What if that wretched disciple of yours comes personally? At this point, she could not help but shake her head. You might have the means to escape alone, but what about your woman? Are you going to let her live under your protection for the rest of her life? So, what I mean is to let Su Yuhan bear the responsibility that she should bear. This is a kind of pressure, but it's also an opportunity. That way, she can grow quickly and become your greatest helper in the future. I believe that Su Yuhan herself doesn't want to be your burden. Yi Chen fell into silence as he listened to her narration. Think about it carefully. The figure shook her head slightly and disappeared from Su Yuhan's consciousness. Above the clouds, Yi Chen retracted his divine consciousness and opened his eyes slowly. He looked at Su Yuhan, who was sleeping soundly with a complicated gaze. With a wave of his sleeve, he landed on the ground with Su Yuhan. At the same time, the Patriarch of Hell and the 4 witches rushed over. Fellow Yi, something happened. The Patriarch of Hell came up and said, something happened in Yinsu. What exactly happened? Yi Chen frowned. Di Jiang said in a deep voice, all the living beings in Yinsu have been expelled to the outside world. The entire Yinsu has been sealed by a mysterious power. We can't go no matter what we do. At the same time, the Pangu Axe artifact spirit ancient slave that Yi Chen kept in his consciousness shook slightly. It said, it's Master's aura. I sensed Master's aura. Chapter 1708. Master's aura? Yi Chen was stunned at first, then his heart skipped a beat. Pangu? Pangu's aura? The Pangu Axe was a weapon refined by Pangu. The master that the Pangu Axe's weapon spirit mentioned was naturally Pangu. Yes, it's Master. The Pangu Axe's weapon spirit, Gu Nu, said excitedly. Yinsu, there's Master's aura in Yinsu. Yinsu. Yi Chen's eyes flickered. As soon as something happened in Yinsu, Pangu's aura appeared. Could there be some connection between the two? He took a step forward. In the next moment, his figure appeared in front of the entrance of the Yinsu tunnel on General Mountain that was thousands of kilometers away. Many Chinese powerhouses who were in charge of guarding the Yinsu tunnel knelt on the ground. Greetings, Great Emperor. Yi Chen nodded lightly and looked at the Yinsu tunnel. His eyes flashed as he slammed his palm onto the huge stone door. A shocking scene appeared. Faced with such an attack from him, the stone door did not move at all. Instead, it was as if it had absorbed all of his power. The Patriarch of Hell, the 4 witches, and the rest who had rushed over were also surprised. With Yi Chen's current ability, even they would not be able to withstand a light attack, right? However, they could not even shake a mere stone door? Yi Chen raised his brows. He turned around and said to Feng Qinzi, who was in charge of guarding this place, when did this happen? Great Emperor, it happened half an hour ago. Feng Qinzi did not dare to hide anything. Half an hour ago? Yichen frowned slightly and said to Gu Nu through voice transmission, "The restriction on the Yin-Su tunnel seems to have been strengthened. Do you know how to enter?" "This is what Master left behind back then." Gu Nu said, "Even I don't know how to enter." "Is that so?" Yi Chen was a little disappointed. He looked at the stone door before him quietly. Suddenly, his body shook slightly. Under the remaining light, he realized that there was a dent at the bottom of the stone door. The dent was shaped like a bottle. Immortal drift bottle? At that moment, such a thought flashed through Yi Chen's mind. He took a deep breath in and turned around to say to everyone calmly, "You guys leave first. I'll stay and study it." "Yes." Feng Qinzi and the others didn't dare to refuse. They hurriedly left with their people. Even Patriarch Yellow Spring and the 4 ancestral sorcerers nodded in agreement. After everyone left, Yi Chen lifted his hand to set up a barrier. He then looked at the dent on the stone door from a close distance. He was sure that the indentation was exactly the same size as the immortal drift bottle. After hesitating for a moment, a dark green jade bottle appeared in his hand with a thought. This belongs to Master?" The moment it saw the immortal drift bottle, the Pangu Axe artifact spirit Gu Nu's whole body trembled, and it looked extremely shocked. I see. Seems like this is all arranged by the heavens." He looked at Yi Chen with a complicated gaze and mumbled to himself. "Go." Yi Chen waved his sleeve lightly. The immortal drift bottle shot at the indentation on the stone door immediately. It then embedded itself into the indentation. At that moment, Yi Chen's eyes were a little nervous. It could be said that the immortal drift bottle was his greatest secret. If there was an accident, even he would vomit blood. Buzz, fortunately, after the stone door fused with the immortal drift bottle, it did not explode or self-destruct. Instead, it trembled slightly and emitted a dazzling light. Even Yi Chen felt a little dizzy. When he saw the scene before him clearly, he was surprised to see a huge circular formation. There were many densely packed small words engraved in the circular formation, and a trace of ancient aura was also emitted from it. The stone door had long disappeared. The immortal drift bottle turned into a ray of light and returned to Yi Chen's body. Ancient teleportation formation? Yi Chen was shocked at first. When he saw the small words on it clearly, his eyes lit up. No, this isn't an ordinary ancient teleportation formation, but a space teleportation formation. As soon as he said that, he could not help but feel a ripple in his heart. There was actually a space teleportation formation here. If the ancient teleportation formation was limited to a flat surface, then the space teleportation formation involved multiple dimensions. The distance was further and the design was more complicated. But what does this space teleportation formation mean? Yi Chen frowned and could not help but say, could there be something at the other end of the space teleportation formation? Normally, ordinary people would not easily set up such an unfamiliar teleportation formation. After all, no one knew where the other end of the teleportation formation was. It could be 100,000 meters underground or 10,000 kilometers high in the sky. A slight carelessness would result in death. If the other end of the teleportation formation was destroyed, once one was teleported over, they would fall into a terrifying spacetime reversal and space storm. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, they would probably have to wander aimlessly in the endless lonely universe. Once their true origin energy was exhausted, only death awaited them. Should he go or not? Yi Chen was a little hesitant. After thinking about it, he took a deep breath in and waved his sleeve. Immediately, a large number of spirit stones appeared before him. I hope it won't disappoint me. He cast a seal and activated the space teleportation formation. At the same time, he threw in a large number of spirit stones, turning the flood of spiritual energy into power for the teleportation formation. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As he cast the seal, the entire teleportation formation lit up. The entire teleportation formation lit up immediately. In the end, an extremely vast space teleportation power enveloped Yi Chen. In the next moment, he disappeared from where he was. Meanwhile, the space teleportation formation quietly sank into the ground, and the stone door appeared again. It was as if nothing had changed. End of this chapter. Chapter 1709. To Yi Chen, it was not his first time using the space teleportation formation. Therefore, as soon as he entered the void teleportation formation, he formed a true energy barrier outside his body to protect himself. His figure shuttled through the void teleportation formation quickly, brushing past different light spots from time to time. Those light spots must be the stars closest to Earth. Yi Chen's eyesight was excellent as he mumbled. For example, the first small light spot is the moon, followed by the Big Dipper. He knew that he was rapidly moving away from Earth at an extremely terrifying speed at this moment. Stay away from his parents. Stay away from his wife. This speed had long surpassed the so-called speed of light and rocket. It was as if two stars that were hundreds of light-years away could be crossed in the blink of an eye. For some reason, he felt a little melancholic and nervous. If he were to leave like this, never to return, after all, to cultivators, although their divinity was great, it was just a drop in the ocean in the entire world and the vast universe. The lonely universe was dim and silent. After an unknown period of time, on a star that was as dark as the Dead Sea in the vast universe, as a violent spatial storm descended, a figure landed on the ground. Compared to Earth, this star was less than 1/10 of Earth. There was no vitality at all on it. It was filled with a kind of lethargy and death. There was no eternal existence in this world. Not only did humans have lifespan, but so did every star. Clearly, this was a sign that a star was about to die. Yi Chen stepped on the lonely ground and looked down at the star under his feet. His divine consciousness covered a radius of 10,000 kilometers. He thought he would be teleported to a dangerous place. He did not expect to be teleported here. There was no life within a radius of 10,000 kilometers, let alone any traces of living beings. Clearly, this star was not suitable for survival. It was even more withered than the Moon and Mars. Around it were countless stars that were identical to him. As far as the eye could see, there were more than 100 of them. Some of them were filled with life, while others were lifeless. Fortunately, the space teleportation formation is still here. I can return to Earth at any time. Yi Chen turned around to look at the space teleportation formation in the void by instinct. He could not help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw that it was still there. There must be a reason why this teleportation formation sent me here. Otherwise, no one would spend so much effort just to play a prank on me. Yi Chen vanished from where he was as he thought to this point. He wanted to explore this desolate star. This star was only 1/10 the size of Earth. With his speed, it took him less than 2 hours to get a general idea of it. He spent some time exploring the nearby planets, and when he returned, his expression became a little strange. Something's wrong. Something's wrong with this star. He stared at the ground beneath his feet, his eyes shining with a light that seemed to be able to see through everything. It's too quiet. Even if it had withered a long time ago, why isn't there any trace of life left on it? The other dried-up stars all more or less had traces of life, such as burning fire seeds or signs of cultivation. However, the star beneath his feet did not move at all. Yi Chen's eyes flickered as he thought to this point. He performed a hand seal with both hands and performed the earth escape technique. He sank into the ground directly. He shuttled through the ground crazily, as if he wanted to explore this dried-up star from top to bottom. In the endless depths of the underground, Yi Chen shuttled through the ground crazily, not feeling any pressure at all. Suddenly, his body shook violently before he took a few steps back heavily, as if he had collided with an extremely hard barrier. Yi Chen lifted his eyes again. He looked at the rock formation before him quietly as the flames in his eyes danced. The layer of rock that was completely identical to the surroundings had suddenly become different, and it was actually densely covered in formation divine markings. Restriction, an extremely complicated restriction. Yi Chen was overjoyed. He then reached out to touch the rock formation by instinct. Boom! In an instant, a terrifying rebounding force came over, and it caused his vital energy and blood to roil without end. What a powerful restriction! This restriction is so mysterious that I've never seen it before. It's completely different from the restriction rules in the cultivation world and the immortal world. It's hard to imagine that there's such a powerful restriction hidden under this seemingly inconspicuous planet. He secretly took a deep breath. Before he could react, the immortal drift bottle in his body suddenly started to vibrate. At the next moment, the immortal drift bottle forcefully appeared from his body and started to spin rapidly around the rock formation that was covered by the restriction. Suddenly, drops of green leaves dripped from it and landed on the rock formation. Crack, crack, crack as a crisp sound was heard. The restriction that even Yi Chen was helpless against collapsed on its own. Within a few breaths of time, a huge hole appeared on the rock formation. It could accommodate one person. Yi Chen put the immortal drift bottle away and took a step out. He immediately shuttled through the huge hole. What greeted his eyes was a quiet space. It was so quiet that there was no sound at all. There was actually a giant statue in this space. The giant lay flat on the ground. From afar, its body was so huge that it looked like an incomparably majestic mountain range. Even Mount Tai would pale in comparison. Master's statue, this is Master's statue. At that moment, the excited voice of the Pangu Axe's artifact spirit, Gu Nu, sounded in Yi Chen's mind. Subsequently, the Pangu Axe forcefully shot out from its body. It surrounded the giant's figure and muttered, "Master, is it Pangu's statue?" Yi Chen's heart skipped a beat. He took a step forward and approached the giant quickly. Immediately, he felt an extremely powerful pressure coming at him. The pressure seemed to look down on everything, and it seemed to be unruly and unruly. There was a huge vertical eye between the giant's brows. There was a faint divine glow flickering in the vertical eye at that moment. From time to time, it would emit an aura that made Yi Chen suffocate. "That's..." Yi Chen gulped. "That's Master's godhead." Gu Nu shed tears and said, "So Master hid the godhood on this desolate star." "I see." Yi Chen was surprised and delighted. At the same time, he was shocked by Pangu's plan. It was because this lonely planet was too inconspicuous. If not for his preconceived notions, he would have thought that it was an ordinary planet. If Pangu had left the godhead on Earth, Earth would be in an even more dangerous situation. "I must obtain the God Clan's godhead." With a thought, Yi Chen turned into a ray of light and rushed into the giant's glabella. He had a feeling that this was his opportunity. This opportunity was even more terrifying than the immortal drift bottle. End of this chapter. Chapter 1710. As Yi Chen charged into the giant's glabella, the underground space returned to silence once again. Meanwhile, the desolate star that the underground space was located on was still standing quietly in the universe. It was inconspicuous among the hundreds of stars of the same size around it. No one knew that there was a young man from the distant Earth who was about to receive a heaven-defying opportunity on this planet. It was a vast world. Stars were scattered between heaven and earth, mixed with darkness and coldness. Yi Chen was in it. His face was filled with extreme shock as he looked at the meteor shower that passed by him quickly. Is this the world inside the giant's body? He was just too shocked. The world inside the giant's body looked like a separate universe that contained countless stars. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he might have thought that he was in the outside world, forming a sea of stars in his body. Such a technique is heaven-defying. How terrifying is the legendary god tribe! Yi Chen suppressed the shock within him. He took a step forward and wandered in the vast sea of stars. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks and stared into the distance. There was a speck of light that was even smaller than the surrounding stars quietly floating there. Although it wasn't huge, the light it emitted made the many stars in the surroundings lose their splendor. It was as if it was the king of the stars. Above it, a mysterious power was being emitted, accompanied by a resplendent purple light. At the same time, the immortal drift bottle in his body moved again. This time, it was 1,000 times more terrifying than before. It was as if it had been summoned by some fatal force. Yi Chen forcefully sealed it in his body, and prevented it from coming out to prevent any unforeseen events that he could not control from happening again. That's Master's Godhead. Pangu Axe's artifact spirit, Gu Nu said excitedly, that's the inherited godhead of the God tribe, the godhead left behind by Master. As expected, golden light exploded from Yi Chen's eyes immediately. Pangu was so powerful, with the ability to split heaven and earth. How could the godhead he left behind be an ordinary item? Yi Chen stared at the purple light with a burning gaze. Subsequently, he walked toward it step by step and extended his palm slowly. Boom! Right at that moment, the purple ball of light immediately emitted a force that he couldn't resist, and then it was accompanied by an indifferent and dignified voice. Those who haven't obtained the recognition have no fate with the divine spark. Yi Chen's expression changed slightly upon seeing that. Then, he took another step forward. Boom! In an instant, a huge door appeared out of thin air behind the purple ball of light. Purple light filled the heaven and earth door as if everything in the world, including Yi Chen, had turned into a part of the purple light. As soon as the heaven and earth door appeared, Yi Chen immediately sensed a sense of reverence that came from deep within his soul. This feeling of reverence even caused his soul to tremble. If you don't acknowledge me, why did you lure me here? I don't believe that I won't be manipulated by anyone. Yi Chen had an unyielding look in his eyes as he took a step forward with all his might. Boom! Suddenly, an incomparably thick purple hand shot out from the heaven and earth gate. Then, he pointed a finger at Yi Chen. It was this finger. It made Yi Chen's heart skip a beat. All the hair on his body stood on end. Yi Chen's expression changed slightly. He then took a deep breath in and was about to take the terrifying finger head-on. He had a feeling that if he missed the opportunity before him, he might regret it for the rest of his life. At the next moment, the immortal drift bottle in his body broke through the seal and turned into a ray of jade-green light that left his body, shooting towards the finger that was descending from afar. Buzz, 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 the terrifying finger disappeared instantly. The entire heaven and earth door shook violently, as if this space could collapse at any time. Just when Yi Chen was prepared to face the danger, the indifferent and dignified voice from before sounded again, the immortal drift bottle. The voice seemed to be sighing and at a loss. Rumble. Subsequently, a terrifying suction force came from the gigantic heaven and earth door. Yi Chen's body was sucked in uncontrollably. Before he could react, the first thing that entered his eyes was a giant. Whether it was the giant's size or aura, it was even larger and vaster than Pangu's body outside. There was a vast universe above the giant's head, and he stood in the endless starry sky. Many stars seemed too insignificant before him, like a bubble. This was a powerful race. Yi Chen's heart skipped a beat. The giant was holding a baby in his arms at that moment. Although it was a baby, it was taller than any earthling Yi Chen had ever seen. Soon, the giant passed through the endless galaxy and crossed a distant land. Finally, he arrived outside a planet that was wrapped in blue. The giant sized up the blue planet, then lowered his head to look at the baby in his arms. Immediately after, he threw the baby onto the blue planet. After that, the giant turned around and left, disappearing into the endless universe. He did not look at the baby again. He was extremely determined. Yi Chen's eyes flickered when he saw that. He seemed to have understood something. The blue planet before him must have been the early Earth. As for the baby that was thrown onto Earth, he was on the verge of coming out. In the early days, Earth was in chaos. He did not know what heaven and earth were, what all living things were, or what life was. Yi Chen just stood there and watched. Time passed quickly. He personally witnessed the growth of the baby that was thrown onto Earth, from a baby to a teenager, and then to a young man. The young man left Earth and headed to the extremely distant Way star zone. When he returned again, he was on the verge of death. One day, the young man held a sharp axe and broke through the void of chaos. From then on, there was heaven and earth. The young man fell, and his body transformed into everything. Almost at that moment, the voice from before sounded in Yi Chen's mind again. Inheritor, my name is Pengu. I hope that you can return to the God clan one day after obtaining my inheritance. His subsequent voice was extremely hazy. Yi Chen could not hear it clearly at all. At the next moment, Yi Chen's body seemed to be grabbed by an invisible hand. Subsequently, he seemed to be thrown into a mysterious space. At the same time, a large amount of terrifying memories surrounded him from all directions like a tide, completely covering him. The amount of information was so great that even with Yi Chen's powerful divine will, he still felt like his soul was about to be torn apart. He could not help but let out a painful cry. Ancient Star Technique. Sky-splitting 9 styles. Earth-splitting 8 halberds. End of this chapter. Chapter 1711. Time passed bit by bit. However, in this vast universe, even though millions of years had passed, not much had changed. The universe was still dark and lonely. After an unknown period of time, suddenly, on the planet Yi Chen was on, a bolt of lightning crossed from another galaxy and finally landed on the lonely planet. As the lightning fell, a huge and ferocious lightning beast was revealed. The lightning beast looked like a rhinoceros, and lightning would occasionally erupt between the 2 ferocious vertical horns on its head. On the lightning beast sat a handsome young man. The young man's face was slightly pale, and he wore black armor. His appearance was slightly different from the people on Earth. Roar! The lightning beast roared and immediately bent its front legs slightly, kneeling. The young man gently leaped down from its body. Only then did he size up the lonely planet beneath his feet. A hint of suspicion flashed across his handsome face. That's strange. Why did the sky drilling rat lead me all the way here? As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of black light shot out from his sleeve. As soon as the black light landed on the ground, it immediately revealed a large furry object. It looked like a black cat, but it had a long nose and sharp scales on its body. As soon as the sky drilling rat appeared, it sniffed everywhere with its nose, as if it was sensing something. Alright, stop fooling around. The young man snorted coldly. That would Spirit Planet's Mu Kuei took advantage of my absence to ambush me. I'm afraid he has already followed me here. I can't stay here for long. With that, a trace of scarlet blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Immediately after, he suddenly looked into the distance and his expression changed slightly. Damn it, Mu Kuei actually followed me all the way here. Looks like he really wants me dead. Bastard! As the young man cursed, the sky drilling rat found a direction and suddenly plunged into the ground. That's right, dive into the depths of this planet. The young man immediately revealed a look of understanding. With a wave of his sleeve, he kept the lightning beast and burrowed deep underground. After a few breaths of time, a burly man descended where the young man was previously. The burly man carefully sensed for a while, then looked at the place where the young man had entered. A cold smile appeared on his lips. Fire Xian, do you think you can escape? He made a hand seal, and his whole body followed into the ground. Damn it! Why is this Mu Kuei constantly chasing after me? Could it be that he did something to me? Deep underground, the young man cursed madly as he ran for his life. In the depths of the desolate planet, an egg-shaped object had appeared at an unknown time. This egg-shaped object was the size of a mountain, and it was entirely purple in color. It forcefully squeezed out a space within the layer of rock. "What is that?" The youth who was running for his life was shocked when he saw this. There was actually a miraculous fetus in the depths of this desolate star? This was the first time he had seen something like this. Suddenly, a crack appeared on the surface of the egg-shaped object. Then, countless more cracks spread out. As the eggshell shattered, a green-clothed figure appeared. It was a young man in green. He was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. There was no aura coming from him, as if he had lost all signs of life. Who is this person? The young man was puzzled. At this moment, the seemingly dead young man in green suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! As he opened his eyes, in that instant, a huge thunderclap was set off in the depths of the ground, shaking the heavens and shaking the earth, and spreading across the starry sky. At this moment, the young man in green was floating in midair, lightning swimming around his body. His long hair was bathed in lightning, and it fluttered without any wind. Then, the young man in green suddenly looked at the young man. Just one look. The young man was almost scared out of his wits. This was a pair of indescribable eyes that seemed to contain the entire world. It was as if they could see through all the laws in the world with a single glance. It was an extremely shocking sight, and it caused the depths of one's soul to tremble. Who is this person? The young man's body trembled. He felt as if there was an invisible hand strangling his throat, and his eyes widened. It was too terrifying. One had to know that he was also at the late divine transformation stage, but now, he felt as if he had been seen through by a single glance. Even among the many clan elders, he had never felt such pressure, as if he was about to die. At this moment, he somewhat regretted coming here. This person must be an old monster who lives in seclusion on this planet to cultivate. I don't know if I've offended him by accidentally barging into this place. The more the young man thought about it, the more afraid he became. He gritted his teeth and knelt heavily before Yi Chen under the pressure. He said in a trembling voice, "I'm Huoxian from the Fire Spirit Planet's Fire Spirit Clan. I accidentally entered Senior's closed-door cultivation place. Please forgive me, Senior." To cultivators, closed-door cultivation was the most important thing, and they could not be disturbed by the outside world. Therefore, he knew very well the temper of these old monsters. Once he was displeased, he would easily slaughter the entire planet. As he knelt, Yi Chen looked at him quietly and said emotionlessly, "Leave this planet within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn." The lightning dispersed. His words were extremely calm. However, when it landed in the young man's ears, it was like a thunderbolt. Yes, I'll leave now." The young man knelt again and stood up. He did not care too much and was about to leave. However, at that moment, a powerful divine consciousness swept over from afar. The young man stopped in his tracks, and his expression changed drastically. "Mu Kuei, this damn ghost is really lingering." He could not help but reveal despair. Mu Kuei was a perfected god transformation stage cultivator. His cultivation base was higher than his, but he had shamelessly ambushed him earlier. He did not have the strength to fight anymore. If he was really caught by him, one could imagine what would happen to him. However, if he did not leave, Yi Chen behind him would definitely be unhappy. He gritted his teeth as he thought to this point. He suddenly turned around and knelt before Yi Chen again. "Senior, there's a great enemy who wants to kill me. Please save this junior's life. This junior will definitely follow you." Before Yi Chen could speak, the divine consciousness in the distance was getting closer and closer. It was accompanied by a mocking voice. "Huoxian, you're not running anymore?" As his voice fell, a burly man approached from afar and coincidentally blocked Huoxian's path. "Mu Kuei, you'll die a horrible death." Huoxian was in complete despair. Mu Kuei smiled disdainfully when he heard that. However, he was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he looked at Yi Chen who was before Huoxian cautiously. The reason being, Huoxian was kneeling before the unfamiliar young man. In addition, the young man did not reveal any aura at all, which made him somewhat uncertain. Thinking to this point, Mu Kuei could not help but probe, Huoxian, you're a genius of Fire Spirit Planet after all. I didn't expect you to kneel in front of someone else. He had thought that Huoxian would reveal an embarrassed expression. Who would have thought that Huoxian would look at him as if he had something to rely on? He sneered and said, Mu Kuei, how can you be so presumptuous in front of a senior? Hurry up and leave. End of this chapter. Chapter 1712. To Huoxian. Since Mu Kuei had already caught up, it was impossible for him to escape. Instead of that, he might as well take a gamble. He gambled that Yi Chen, who was behind him, was a peerless old monster who was cultivating in seclusion. He gambled that Yi Chen did not want to see him bleed in front of him. Hearing his reprimand, Mu Kuei's pupils constricted violently, and his heart became more and more unfathomable. After all, Huoxian had been running for his life earlier. He was afraid of him, so how could he be as confident as he was now? Thinking to this point, he could not help but take a deep look at Yi Chen in the distance. He cupped his fists and said, May I know how to address you, fellow? I'm Mu Kuei of Wood Spirit Planet. I hope you won't interfere in the grudge between me and Huoxian. He did not know Yi Chen's strength, so he probed again. However, Yi Chen closed his eyes slowly as if he did not hear him. An emotionless voice was heard, scram within 3 breaths or die. Mu Kuei faintly felt furious in his heart. He was originally a genius of Wood Spirit Planet. When had he ever been looked down upon like this? Moreover, it was a brat who looked so ordinary? What a shameless brat! He shouted and formed a hand seal with both hands. Go! Suddenly, a gigantic red shadow that looked like a demon shot out from his body. Then, it charged at Yi Chen. The gigantic red shadow was like an enormous 6-winged centipede, and it was filled with a threatening murderous aura. Wood Spirit Technique. Huoxian's expression changed when he saw this. It was because Mu Kuei had used this move to injure him earlier. The red shadow was as fast as lightning. Coupled with the fact that the distance between the two of them was not far, it arrived before Yi Chen almost instantly. However, before the red shadow could touch Yi Chen, it was struck by a bolt of lightning. Then, it screamed and turned into ashes. Blurred. Almost at that instant, Mu Kuei spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he could not care too much and quickly fled into the distance with an extremely shocked expression. This person actually broke my Wood Spirit Technique. Run, I must run. At this moment, the shock in his heart had reached a point where it could not be any greater. Yi Chen opened his eyes again. This time, he was filled with killing intent. He stretched out his hand gently, and it seemed to have turned into a giant palm that could split the earth. No! Mu Kuei immediately sensed an extremely terrifying suction force, and his body flew back uncontrollably. Senior, spare me, spare me! At that moment, Mu Kuei looked at Yi Chen with fear in his eyes again. I'm from Wood Spirit Planet. Senior, my great-grandfather is the master of Wood Spirit Planet. You can't kill me! Yi Chen shook his arm and crushed his body instantly. A miniature person looked at him in fear. It was the Wood Spirit's divine soul. No, you can't kill me, it screamed wildly. Yi Chen's expression did not change. He pointed a finger between his brows, and an extremely terrifying force was about to destroy his astral body. Suddenly, a crimson gleam shot out from his soul and turned into an illusory figure before Yi Chen. Fellow Taoist, I am the master of Wood Spirit Star, Mu Baiming. Please hold your hands for a moment, we can discuss this. There was a faint pressure coming from it. Tao integration final stage? Surprise flashed through Yi Chen's eyes. Subsequently, he forcefully erased Mu Kuei's soul. Brat, how dare you! The illusory figure seemed to have sensed that Mu Kuei had died, and his aura instantly became extremely violent. However, in the next moment, his projection instantly dissipated. The entire process was completed in the blink of an eye. When Huoxian woke up from his daze, he could not help but shudder. Mu Kuei had been killed. At that moment, he suddenly sensed a cold gaze directed at him. Plop! He knelt heavily on the ground, his body trembling. Yi Chen retracted his gaze and said, "Does this star have a name?" Huoxian did not dare to hide anything. He immediately said respectfully, "Senior, this star is called Haixing Star. It's said that this star was a sea countless years ago, but I don't know why it died later on." Haixing Star? Yi Chen's eyes flickered slightly. After accepting Panga's inheritance, he learned too many things. For example, the Haixing Star in front of him was originally full of vitality, and there was no lack of civilizations. Later on, Pangu hid the godhead under this star, and the godhead absorbed the life force of this star, causing this star to completely wither. Seeing that he was silent, Huoxian trembled even more. He subconsciously said, "Senior, if you don't mind, you can follow me to Fire Spirit Star. That's my ancestral land. That works too." Yi Chen agreed to it surprisingly. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, a lightning beast spread its wings and soared in the starry sky. On its back sat a figure in green. Beside the figure in green, there was a young man in black armor standing respectfully. Yi Chen sat cross-legged and immersed his divine consciousness into his mind. In his mind, he saw a purple diamond-shaped object floating quietly in his shunting acupoint. It faintly emitted a holy aura. If exalted immortal Gu Hua had not died, he would definitely know that this was the treasure that he had painstakingly wanted, Pangu's godhead. Sensing the aura coming from the diamond-shaped object, Yi Chen's eyes burned with passion. This time, he learned a piece of news that was enough to shake the three realms. This news was related to the God tribe. Everyone thought that cultivating to become an immortal was the limit of this world. Even Yi Chen was no exception. End of this chapter. Chapter 1713. However, in reality, there were even higher existences above immortals, and these existences were known as the God Clan. They were also known as ancient gods. They were born as innate gods and demons. They could easily destroy billions of stars and split the world apart. They were the true masters of this world. Pangu was one of these ancient gods. However, since he was young, he was abandoned by the adult god clan in the universe, leaving him to fend for himself. This was also a necessary process for the growth of the God Clan. Any newborn of the God Clan would be thrown into the lonely universe by the adult God Clan. Pangu tried to return to the God Clan as soon as he became an adult. For some unknown reason, he suddenly died, and his body evolved into all things on Earth. Thinking to this point, Yi Chen could not help but secretly suck in a breath of cold air. There's actually a danger in this world that can cause a god clan to die. How terrifying! At the next moment, at the center of his eyebrows, there was a faint mark that looked like a star slowly floating. However, this star seemed a little dim, as if it was only half a star. After accepting Panga's godhead, Yi Chen could be considered an ancient god now, but he was equivalent to an ancient god in his infancy. However, Pangu's godhead only contained memories and no substantial power inheritance. The god clan consumed the vitality of the stars as energy, and their cultivation base was also calculated according to the power of the stars. Specific strength was measured by the number of stars, such as 1-star ancient god, 2-star ancient god, and so on, all the way to 9-star ancient god. At his peak, Pangu was a 5-star ancient god with the ability to split the world apart. The star mark between Yi Chen's brows represented that he was currently a 1-star ancient god. The greatest reliance of an ancient god was their physical body. They were known as the ancient god body, which could destroy billions of stars with a raise of their hand. If Yi Chen successfully cultivated the ancient god's body, he would be able to fight against that ancient immortal with his physical body alone. However, the conditions for cultivating the ancient god body were extremely harsh. He needed to find the 5 most extreme energies in this world as the prerequisite for building the ancient god body. This was also the reason why he agreed to come to Fire Spirit Star. After all, he was already here, so there was no hurry. At this moment, an extremely respectful voice woke him up. "Senior, we've arrived at Fire Spirit Star." Yi Chen looked up and looked down at the planet below. The planet was not big. It was no different from planet Ocean Ascension and was only 1/10 the size of Earth. However, the spiritual chi on this planet was extremely dense. Numerous fire dragons formed an array on the surface of the planet. Upon closer inspection, the source of the fire dragon's power was actually the boundless fire spiritual chi on the ground. This was a planet with terrifying fire element. No wonder it was called Fire Spirit Star. As if sensing Lin Ming's doubts, Profound Fire immediately explained, "Senior might not know, but there are 3 other existences like my Fire Spirit Star. They are the Wood Spirit Star, the Earth Spirit Star, and the Gold Spirit Star." Metal, wood, earth, and fire? The 5 elements? Yi Chen was surprised. What about planet Water Spirit? This place was very similar to Earth. Earth was also surrounded by Jupiter, Mars, and other planets. Of course, neither Jupiter nor Mars were suitable for human survival. Huoxian couldn't help but say, strictly speaking, there is no Water Spirit Star now. If you want to trace it back, then Sea Ascension Star is the Water Spirit Star that Senior mentioned. I see. Yi Chen came to a realization. Just as the 2 of them were about to approach the surface of Fire Spirit Star, a powerful barrier suddenly rippled out. From afar, it looked like a layer of planet protection formed by endless flames. "Senior, this is the star formation of my Fire Spirit Star. Its purpose is to prevent people from other galaxies from entering." Huoxian took a few steps forward and waved his sleeve. Immediately, a token shot out, and a phantom that looked like a fire dragon was released from the token. As soon as the fire dragon came into contact with the star formation, a hole immediately opened on the surface of the star formation. "Senior, please follow me." Huoxian cupped his fists at Yi Chen and walked at the front. Yi Chen's eyes flashed. He followed him through the star formation and entered Fire Spirit Star. He instantly felt the Fire Spirit Star that was as dense as the sea. Boom! Boom! At the same time, several figures rushed over from afar. They were 2 men and 1 woman. The leader was a woman in a red dress. Seeing the 3 of them, Huoxian was not surprised but happy. He hurriedly said, "Big sister. Little brother, you're finally back." The woman in the red dress whistled over and sized up Huoxian from head to toe. She could not help but say coldly, "You're injured? Tell me, who did it?" As soon as she said that, she noticed Yi Chen, who was next to Huoxian. A cold gleam flashed through her beautiful eyes. The other 2 were no exception. Clearly, they treated Yi Chen as the murderer. "Big sister, you're mistaken." Huoxian's expression changed slightly as he hurriedly explained, "My injury has nothing to do with Senior Yi. On the contrary, if it weren't for him, I might have already died." "Senior?" Before the woman in the red dress could speak, one of the other 2 men sneered, "Huoxian, you actually called a brat a young man. Are you confused?" Huoyuan is right. The other young man looked at Yi Chen suspiciously. "This brat is about the same age as us. How can he be called a senior?" End of this chapter. Chapter 17-14. Faced with Huoyuan and Huoxian's doubts, even the red-clothed woman named Huoyun shook her head noncommittally. In her opinion, Yi Chen was younger than them. At his age, his cultivation base was at most at the soul formation stage. How could he be qualified to call himself a senior in front of them? "All right, little brother, go back with big sister. Father wants to see you. This time, there can't be any mishaps in the Fire Spirit Star's God Sacrifice Hall." Huoyun grabbed Huoxian with one hand and was about to leave. "Big sister." Hua Xian's expression changed slightly. He could not help but look at Yi Chen subconsciously. He did not want them to offend this senior. As if guessing what he was thinking, Yi Chen said lightly, "Go back with them. I'll take a stroll around this planet." With that, Hui Yun and the other two had already grabbed Hua Xian and left. Yi Chen watched as the group left. A glint flashed in his eyes. The god's sacrifice ceremony? In the next moment, he took a step forward and instantly disappeared. On an official road on the land of Fire Spirit Star, Yi Chen restrained his aura and walked slowly on the official road. His handsome face and green clothes made him look incomparably elegant. He discovered that although the size of Fire Spirit Star was only 1/10 of Earth's, in terms of spiritual energy density, Earth could not compare to it. Along the way, Fire Spirit Star was densely populated. It also had the secular world and mortal dynasties. Obtaining the Pangu divinity is my biggest harvest this time. Yi Chen murmured, "If I can successfully cultivate the ancient god body, I can separate a clone with the ancient god body." There were few people on the official road. Occasionally there would be pedestrians hurrying along, but they did not look at Yi Chen. In their opinion, Yi Chen was just a scholar who came to the capital to take the exam. At this moment, the ground began to shake violently. Then, they saw a tall, sturdy horse galloping over from afar. "Get out of the way. The horse has gone mad. I won't be responsible if it dies." There was a man in black on the tall horse. The man frantically tightened the reins, trying to stop the horse. However, the horse's eyes were red and the veins on its body were bulging. It had clearly gone mad and would not listen to its command. Thump, thump, thump. The horse that had lost control charged toward Yi Chen recklessly. "Be careful!" the man in black exclaimed. Bang! Suddenly, Yi Chen threw a punch, and the horse flew out forcefully. It rolled a few times along with the hunk in black. "Bastard!" The hunk in black waved his horsewhip at Yi Chen without saying a word as he watched his beloved horse die on the spot due to the intense pain. Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. He didn't want to hurt these mortals, but if they wanted to die, he didn't mind killing them. "Third brother, stop!" At that moment, a furious shout came from behind the hunk in black. Subsequently, a hand grabbed the horsewhip that was about to land on Yi Chen's face. At the same time, a middle-aged man in silk blocked Yi Chen's way. He stared at the hunk in black and said, "Have you forgotten what I told you before we left? Big brother, this brat killed my horse." The black-clothed man muttered unwillingly. He had spent a lot of money to get his hands on this horse, and he usually treated it like a treasure. He did not know why it suddenly went crazy. "Shut up!" the man in silk scolded coldly. "Your horse almost hurt this little brother. If it wasn't for this little brother's strength, the consequences would be unimaginable." After saying that, he turned around and clasped his fists at Yi Chen. "Little brother, I hope you don't mind that I scared you earlier. I'm Lu Jianzhong from the Mighty Dragon Escort Agency. I'm here to apologize to you." After saying that, he took out a bag. "Little brother, here are 100 copper coins. Please accept it. Treat it as my treat." "No need." Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Lu Jianzhong was reasonable. He did not think that Yi Chen was biased because he was young and alone. After saying that, he turned around and left. Seeing that, the hunk in black said unhappily, "Big brother, this brat doesn't know what's good for him. Should I teach him a lesson?" "Shut up!" Lu Jianzhong scolded. "I've told you many times, but you still can't change your temper. We should try not to make enemies with others when we travel the world. Let's go. Don't let the young mistress worry." He took a good look at Yi Chen, who was far away, and whistled. A black horse leaped out from afar. In the dense forest, a group of about 20 people escorted a carriage on the official road. Behind the carriages were boxes being dragged by horses. On the boxes were the words, "Mighty Dragon Escort Agency." At this moment, outside the carriage, Lu Jianzhong bowed and clasped his fists. "Young mistress, we can depart now. A crisp voice came from the carriage through the curtain. Uncle Lu, is second Uncle Liao all right? He's fine. Lu Jianzhong immediately said, fortunately, we met a little brother on the way. He killed that crazy horse with one punch. Killed a crazy horse with one punch? The young mistress was a little surprised. This person has such brute force. I'm afraid he's not an ordinary person. Young mistress, he's a scholar. Lu Jianzhong replied. He must be someone who came to the capital to take the exam. It's not strange for a scholar to learn martial arts to protect himself. I see. Let's depart then. Yes. Lu Jianzhong immediately jumped off the carriage and ordered the group to depart. However, to everyone's surprise, the previously incomparably obedient horse refused to move no matter what. No matter how they whipped it, it would not move. Instead, it circled on the spot, looking anxious and manic. There's a situation. Everyone, pay attention. Lu Jianzhong's expression changed, and he immediately shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, a large group of people suddenly appeared from the forest on both sides of the official road. There were 50 people in total. The leader carried a large sword and led his men to block the path of Lu Jianzhong and the others. Everyone in the mighty dragon escort agency picked up their weapons at the same time. They looked at these people with vigilance and nervousness. Lu Jianzhong's expression changed and he immediately shouted, "Don't be rash." The next moment, he quickly walked out and said to the leader, "Brother, we're from the capital's mighty dragon escort agency. Please let us pass." He couldn't be more familiar with this scene. When they traveled north and south to protect their escorts, it was inevitable that they would encounter bandits and robbers. Thus, they would often give out some money to ensure their safety. After saying that, he immediately took out a bag and threw it to the leader. "Brother, there's 100 gold coins inside. Treat it as a drink." Gold coins were a type of local currency. Below it were silver beads and copper coins. 1 gold coin was equivalent to 10,000 copper coins. Usually, a family's monthly rations were only 200 copper coins. From this, one could see that the weight of 100 gold coins was not light.